If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MINDSHOCK True Crime. You are listening to the Delphi Case Series. This is episode 14, Suspects Naming Names. That's right, we will be naming names and dissecting the known information regarding suspects early on and more recent suspects and potentially damning evidence linking them to these murders, and we'll be attempting to make heads or tails with some seemingly conflicting information, contradictory information, but at the same time certain variables that can't be dismissed with multiple suspects. I mean, how many suspects could potentially be involved here that could account for all these variables? That is what we'll be going over and attempting to decipher in typical MINDSHOCK fashion. So you guys might want to settle down. This might be a long one. We have so much to go over. If you haven't checked out the previous 13 podcasts, make sure to check them out, because I go over the case, all of the issues with the case, all of the anomalies with the case, and the seemingly Keystone Cop investigation, but it might not be that at all. It might be intentional obfuscation and misdirection by law enforcement. Or it might be law enforcement corruption with possible complicity involving some of the suspects or persons of interest we will be going over. As always, if you enjoy the podcast and you find it interesting, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Help support MINDSHOCK. Help us get more mind-shocking episodes out there to bring awareness not just to this cold case, but to other cases, missing persons, wrongful convictions. Awareness is the key. Make sure you like and share the podcast across social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. So become a patron today and support MINDSHOCK. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right, so let's set the stage here with Robert Lindsay on Beyond Highbrow. So I'm going to go over information from 2017, then I'm going to go into updated information from 2019, and then I'm going to go into the recent information from the past month or two. And because I think there are clues hidden early on that may have been forgotten about, glossed over, disregarded. And these particular clues may be critical in discerning which individuals are involved or not involved, and possible motivations and law enforcement connections. Obviously, we have Derek German, who potentially has blown the whistle on many individuals, and that is why he got reduced sentences, charges dismissed outright. On someone with his rap sheet, it does seem a little unusual unless there was more going on here. Is he a type of CI? Does he have connections to other individuals who are truly the guilty parties? And is some of this on his part almost just wishful thinking, and maybe he's intentionally not considering the possibility that some individuals he's involved with might have wanted retribution of some kind? So maybe he's kind of just intentionally deluded himself into thinking it's not possible. Therefore, he's not intentionally deceiving or not going after these people. He's kind of almost convinced himself that they're not involved, therefore he refuses to look because he's too scared to open that Pandora's box. And it'd be hard to blame the guy. Obviously this is such a tragedy. It's a devastating situation no matter how you look at it. But let's look at this blog post from Beyond Highbrow, Robert Lindsay, August 30th, 2017. Delphi Murders Update, August 30th, 2017. Update on the crime and a profile of a Delphi murders suspect. New Delphi murders update. Note to commenters. 1. I am getting really sick and tired of saying this over and over, but most of the material below is made up of rumors and my own opinions and theories. None of that is presented as fact. Furthermore, I am not using rumors as reliable sources as has been alleged. I never said they were reliable sources. How reliable is a rumor? That's for you to determine. But in general, a rumor is not considered to be a reliable source, and they are not treated as such below. And just my own quick note here, how often do rumors early on in true crime cases turn out to be true? I mean, I just recently covered the Tara Calico case. If you haven't checked that out, check that out. Rumors of the sheriff's son being involved or people connected to the sheriff. I mean, it's just crazy how many cases rumors ended up being true. That's my only point there. Not that these specific rumors are true, but they could be true. So to dismiss them outright, of course, we have condemnation before investigation is the height of ignorance. That doesn't mean you need to believe the rumors. There's no reason to believe or disbelieve. And I don't know why that's so triggering for so many coincidence theorists out there that just think everything is rumor and conspiracy. I'm not alleging it's true or untrue, so it's kind of silly and illogical to just jump to either side of the spectrum without doing the actual work, without doing the logical investigation, which is what we're doing here. The rest of what we are reporting are, in general, our hypotheses about the crime. These hypotheses have changed several times in the course of this investigation, but that's the way all detective work is. If you don't want to be wrong, don't be a detective, because being a detective is all about being wrong. So our hypotheses are just that. If you are not sure what a hypothesis is, go look it up. It's just a guess or a hunch that you are setting out to prove. We do not believe we have proved much about this crime yet, but we do have a lot of hypotheses going. All of those hypotheses are by their nature temporary and may be changed at any time. If they are borne out, then they will become more permanent. The only thing that is presented as fact are statements sourced from law enforcement or the media. And again, caveat, that is not factual necessarily either. Just because someone in an official capacity reported something doesn't mean it's true, especially from law enforcement. We receive so many directly conflicting statements. Obviously, that's not a fact either. If you have issues with rumors, theories, opinions, hypotheses, etc., just quit reading right now and get off my site and don't come back. You will not be missed. Note to commenters too. I thought I made this one thing perfectly clear. As Richard Nixon used to say, I have no sources whatsoever among the families of the girls. I have no sources whatsoever in law enforcement, local or otherwise. There you go. What I do have is sources close to the families. These people generally live in Delphi and the surrounding region, so that makes my rumors even more hearsay. I'm not even talking to the families. I'm talking to people who talk to the families. Of course, I have no law enforcement sources. I thought I made that clear. Never have. Yes, I have talked to some of them, but of course, they didn't tell me a thing. A couple times they told me that a certain person was a person of interest or that a certain person has been cleared with an airtight alibi. And again, another caveat here. Just because law enforcement believes someone has an airtight alibi does not mean they do. Law enforcement are human beings. They are fallible. And if they're taking as airtight the words of another individual, is that really airtight? And what constitutes airtight? Is there security footage of the individual in question for the entirety of the span in which the crime could have occurred, which we don't even really have a time of death, do we? We don't have the coroner's report. We don't have any of this information. So as of right now, there are really very few facts. I suppose they don't mind giving out that information, but other than that, they don't tell me jack. It's hard enough to even get them to call you back. I think if I asked them if my name was Robert Lindsay, they would say, I am sorry, but I cannot comment on matters relating to an ongoing investigation. That's how bad it is. So what do I have? Once again, I have sources who are close to law enforcement. They get their information from law enforcement, then they talk to me. So once again, this is even more hearsay, as I am not even talking to law enforcement, but to the people who are talking to law enforcement. I really wish people would quit claiming I have law enforcement or family sources. I just don't. If you think I have these sources, or if you have any problems at all with my sources, just quit reading my stuff right now and get off my site. You will not be missed. Charming fella this guy is. Note to commenters 3, the lies never end. The latest is Lindsay takes other people's theories and claims they are his own. Of course I don't. This website is nothing but a compendium of rumors from all over the net regarding this crime. I go through the rumors and try to rank them on a scale of weak to strong. I compare them against other rumors to see which one is better. All sorts of theories have been flying around since day one. I report those too. The theories are really just more rumors. I'd say the vast majority of the rumors theories reported here were thought up by other people. I find most of my theories on other sites about this crime. That's how it works, you know. You get theories about the crime from others. Yes, you use your own theories and you use other people's theories. I really do not have the time to go down the list of theories and say where I got them from. I have come up with a few of my own, but even with those, I guess someone else thought of them first. Also, a lot of theories here are also the result of constant brainstorming I do with my fellow sleuths. If you think I steal other people's ideas, a laughable concept on its own, or have problems with me reporting rumors, get off the site right now. You will not be missed. Okay. So, all of the really hot discussion and sleuthing on the site has headed over to the private, password-protected forum where our team of 200 web sleuths has been working on this case and has assembled a huge case against our suspect, including videos and many photographs. This is a profile of a man who we feel is the best suspect in the double murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German in Delphi, Indiana on February 13, 2017. It also contains some new evidence on the crime and a new rundown of the crime itself. New information. But first of all, we have some new important information on a vehicle of interest in the crime. More on the vehicle of interest in the case. In the last report, we detailed the vehicle we believe is the vehicle of interest in this case. The photo below is a photo of this VOI. This vehicle is a late model, white Dodge Dart with paper plates. It was seen 7 miles south of Delphi. On the morning of this crime, we are not sure who the man in the photo is, but we feel he may be the man on the bridge. The woman who lived here thought this vehicle was suspicious, so she wrote down the license plate. We believe this license number with the paper plates was either stolen or given to this man in Kokomo. We traced the license plate back to Kokomo, but we could not get any further information. Previously, we thought this man rented this car. We now believe that this man may own this vehicle. The VOI in the crime is said to be a late model white Dodge Dart with paper plates. It was last seen at the trailhead by a witness at approximately 3 p.m. on February 13th, which was exactly the time that this crime was occurring. Allegedly, of course. We actually don't know that. That's not a fact. As you can see, the vehicle in this photo and the VOI in the case have the same descriptions. Both are described as late model white Dodge Darts with paper plates. We believe that the car below is the same car that was used in the crime 6 hours later on the bridge in Delphi. It stands to reason that this man may be the man on the bridge, but we can't prove that yet. I can tell you who this man was visiting, though. This man was visiting a woman's son at this woman's house. The son lives a ways away, but was visiting his mother at the time. The man in the white car was reportedly visiting a man named BH at this home. We have no information whatsoever on whether BH was involved in the crime that occurred later. At the moment, we have little reason to suspect that he was. However, he does have a criminal record and was arrested only a few days after the murders. We do not understand the relationship between BH and the man with the white car. We have no idea how they know each other or the reason for the visit that morning. As we now believe that this car is owned by this man and not rented, we now believe that the man on the bridge may have used his own car to commit the crime. However, he tried to cover it up by putting fake paper plates over his real plates. We have a suspect who is rumored to drive a late model white Dodge Dart, but we have not been able to prove that he actually has a car like that. It's only a rumor. We have been working to try to figure it out, but car ownership information is hard to come by. There are new reports coming in that the VOI was seen by more people than just this one woman. There are now reports that several people saw that car there at the bridge that day. The reason we think the late model white Dodge Dart with paper plates is the VOI is because, to our knowledge, this is the only car seen that day that has not been cleared. So I'm assuming that they're operating under the information that the black SUV with all the stickers in the rear window was cleared. And there's, of course, conflicting information on that as well. Now, just to keep this in order, there's actually not a ton of information regarding this white Dodge Dart. Again, there's so much conflicting information here, but I'm going to go to paperblog.com, and this is an update July 23rd, 2017. And so this is prior to the August 30th blog that I was just reading. So I will just go over this real quick. This is a profile of a man who we feel is the best suspect in the double murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German in Delphi, Indiana, February 13th, 2017. It also contains some new information. Okay, the vehicle and a new photo that shows the bridge man stalking the girl's vehicle of interest. The vehicle, so it is a late model white Dodge Dart with paper plates. This vehicle was spotted by a witness at the north end of the bridge at 3 p.m. on the day of the murders. To our knowledge, this is the only vehicle at the bridge that was not cleared. So we assume it was the bridge man's car. We believe the car was a rental car and the paper plates were stolen. And again, in the update, they now believe it was his car. This same vehicle was also spotted 7 miles south of Delphi at 7 a.m. on the morning of the murders at a woman's home. The suspect was visiting a young man at the woman's home. The woman thought that the suspect looked suspicious, so she photographed him and wrote down his license number. So this is interesting. So again, this is before the crime. So a woman just thinks this guy's suspicious, so she photographed him and took down his license number. We have that license number, and we have several photographs of this vehicle with the suspect standing next to the trunk. So he's that suspicious that this woman photographed him. We believe that the car photographed in this vehicle was the same car used in the crime. We have okay, so they traced it to the nearby city of Kokomo. We believe that the suspect either stole the plate in Kokomo or someone provided to him. At the time of the crime, the license plate was still valid, but it expired in April. We believe these plates have probably been discarded. This information has been shared with law enforcement, but we have no idea if law enforcement agrees with us that this is the VOI in the crime. This is simply the car that the Beyond Highbrow team of approximately 200 web sleuths believes is the VOI. We have reason to believe that law enforcement may be interested in this photograph, although they have not made any statements to us about these photos. Nevertheless, we feel that if you recognize the man in the photo, or if you saw this vehicle or license number around the time of the crime, we think you should notify law enforcement. We also believe that you should give us any such information. Okay. If you feel you are the man in the photo or that this is your vehicle, then we feel you should go to law enforcement and inform them of that so you are no longer under suspicion. Nevertheless, we have serious doubts that an innocent man, vehicle, or license number is being portrayed in this photo. It is correct that law enforcement has not released any information about this photo, but perhaps they may in the future. Although these photos have been released on some Facebook forums, they have sparked little interest. We have been holding these photos for a long time, and we were afraid to release for fear of interfering with the investigation. However, with the release of the composite, and after thinking long and hard, I am having a hard time understanding how releasing this information harms the case. Instead, it may well prompt more tips. Also, MSM news sites may pick up on the story, which may prompt even more tips. Of course, if law enforcement requests that we take the photos and information down, we will comply. So again, in these photos, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on here. It's a guy at a trunk. I mean, these are not the most high resolution photographs in either way, but there's really not much that can be gleaned here. But let me continue here. The photo was taken at 7 a.m., 7 miles south of Delphi. 8 hours before the Delphi murders occurred in that same town, or allegedly occurred. The person was at a woman's house visiting a friend. Okay. New photo of the bridge man stalking the girls before the crime. We believe that Bridgeman can be seen in Libby's photo of Abby walking on the bridge. Although he is very hard to make out, he is hiding behind a tree to her right. We have enlarged the photograph and circled the Bridgeman hiding behind a tree. We feel this is the Bridgeman because the figure behind the tree matched the Bridgeman perfectly in the color of his clothing. That is kind of creepy, but yeah, it's just so hard to make out. It's so hard. If you study this photo very closely, you will see that the shadow behind the tree is a man-shaped figure. Further, the shape of his body is identical to the shape of the man on the bridge's body. Furthermore, if you look even more closely, you will see that based on the different colors of clothing of the man in the shadow, the man behind the tree is wearing the exact same colored clothing as the man on the bridge. Therefore, we conclude that the shadow is the man on the bridge watching Abby on the bridge and stalking her very shortly before the bridge attack. Here's a second photo from the exact same location as the one with Abby in the bridge below. Notice that there is no shadow hiding behind the tree. Why was it present in one photo and missing in another? I mean, again, you'd have to match up the exact times it was taken, etc. A suggestion is that it was a shadow that was there only on that day. That is improbable, and a further blow-up of the photo shows that to be false, as it clearly shows what the object is. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. We believe that this photo shows the man on the bridge hiding behind a tree watching Abby as she walks on the bridge. The actual murders. Items owned by the girl. Several items of jewelry were stolen by the killer. And $15 to $20 was also stolen. There is a rumor that one girl had a backpack and the killer may have discarded it as he was leaving the scene. The backpack has never been found. We doubt if Libby's phone was recovered by law enforcement. We believe all of the information on the phone was taken from the cloud before the phone died. We believe her phone was taken by the killer. We continue to believe that he may have disposed of it in a gravel pit lake on the Mears property, next door to Ron Logan's property. We do not believe that law enforcement has yet searched or drained this lake. They would probably need a serious warrant to do that, and I doubt if the mayors wish to give law enforcement permission to search or drain the lake. And that's an interesting point, though, because when did they get the phone? Did they find the phone at a later point? And then they just didn't say when they recovered it? Exactly when? Okay, the audio tape of the crime. Only 6 minutes of the 40-minute video is known. After you hear the killer say down the hill, well, they're assuming that's the killer saying down the hill, you hear the sounds of people walking through the forest for several minutes. I guess this is just sourced from rumors. You also hear the muffled voices of more than one person talking at this time. Although it is hard to make out what anyone is saying. Towards the end of the 6 minutes, you hear the man and the girls crossing the creek, which was knee-high where they crossed, I'll bet icy cold. I don't know where they got this information, so this is a group of around 200 web sleuths. So I'm assuming they talked to people who listened to this 6 minutes? So did law enforcement tell them there was 40 minutes and they played 6 minutes? We believe the actual attack started after the three had crossed the creek. It is unknown what prompted the attack. The first attack consisted of a knife attack to the back of the neck of one of the girls. The victim went down right after this attack. At some time around this period, you hear both girls screaming on the audio, probably before the attack took place. Why no one heard these screams is not known. It is not known what is on the rest of the audio, but it appears to consist of the sounds of the two murders taking place. Both murders were apparently caught on audio in full. Again, I guess this is a combination of multiple sources of information, rumor or not. Okay, rumors, and they did not classify this under rumor. So on this paperblog.com, they are classifying the rumors after the information I just went over regarding the tape. So this is their classification. Again, I'm not saying any of this is true or untrue. I have no idea. Rumors. The following consists of a number of rumors about how the girls were killed. Most of these rumors have not yet been validated and should be taken with a huge grain of salt. However, the rumors in bold are apparently true to the best of our knowledge. Probably or fully true rumors. Both girls were disrobed either partially or fully. One was naked, but the other had a top on. Both girls were bottomless, and the panties of both girls were found at some distance from the crime scene. Some of the girls' clothing was found in the creek. And again, I am going to do another aside here because I've referenced the thermal imaging drone that did not pick up the bodies, because if they were there only within hours of being murdered, and body temperature maintains between 30 minutes to 3 hours, and then it drops between 1 to 1.5 degree per hour. So they would clearly show up on a thermal imaging drone unless the drone was not working. The operator has said it was working very well. He could see all the people and deer even. So the other thing is, would they not find anything during their search in the creek? Now, the area where the bodies were found, again, there are no leaves on the trees. This area is visible from many points. The person who allegedly found the bodies found them from the creek. So they were magically not there until the next morning. Again, I don't know. This information is unknown. I am not alleging something is true or untrue. It's just very curious how nothing seems to add up logically. So the clothing was found in a spot that was previously searched. I don't know what to make of that. Either way, back to the rumors here. So they're stating here this is probably or fully true. One girl was propped up against a tree in a sitting position. One girl had the top half of her body covered with leaves. Blood and dirt under Liberty's nails. Dirt under Abby's nails. Abby's nails badly torn up. One girl has an F carved or burned into her chest. Police believe that Libby had 4 to 5 chances to escape, but did not flee because she was so dedicated to her friend that she vowed to not leave her friend in this horrible state with this monster. In real life, they were inseparable. More uncertain but plausible rumors. At some point, at least one of the girls was stricken with the blunt end of a gun. At least one of the girls had the back of her head badly bashed in with a heavy object, possibly a rock. And again, if some or all of this is true, it does point to more than one perpetrator, because if I would assume, I guess theoretically it's possible an individual could use multiple weapons, a knife, a gun, and a rock, all separately on his victim. I guess that is possible, but a stake was driven vertically into the abdomen of one of the girls from the killer who was standing over her body. This is another persistent rumor that we have made great efforts to refute, but still have not been able to do so. This stake to the stomach is one of the reasons for the consistent rumors that one of the girls was pregnant. It is not known if either girl was in the early stages of pregnancy. However, this is a persistent rumor that we have not been able to refute despite our best efforts to do so. The rumor initially stated that one girl was pregnant, but now it says that the other girl was pregnant. Another rumor is that a part of the attack was set off by the killer becoming enraged when he found out one girl was pregnant. How he found this out is not known, but perhaps she told him in an effort to spare her life. Okay, so I'm assuming this means that the rumors are coming from someone who knows the murderer and he relayed this information. The killer used some sort of strong chemical to destroy any of his DNA left at the scene. The killer used shackles to shackle the two girls together, and he may have used chloroform to knock them out. The girls were posed in the crime scene. Okay, inconsistent rumors. There are inconsistent rumors of whether the girls were sexually assaulted or not. One rumor says they were, and in fact, it goes into some detail about what happened during and after the assault. We will not go into the details of this rumor at the moment for obvious reasons, but the latest rumor, apparently from an excellent source, is that the girls were not sexually assaulted. The bridge man and the suspect, too many coincidences. We believe that the bridge man is wearing boots from the Indiana Packers plant in town. The suspect formerly worked at Indiana Packers for a significant period of time around the period of the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s. He was employed in the maintenance department where he was employed as an electrician. We believe that the bridge man is a fisherman. The suspect is an avid fisherman almost to the point of obsession and fanaticism. Although the bridge man is said to be wearing a fanny pack in the bridge photo, he is actually wearing what is called a deer kit. This typically contains scissors, knives, etc. for cutting up the game that the hunter has killed, and the bridge man's pack may have contained similar items. He may have used some of these items to cut up the girls. The bridge man is definitely left-handed. The suspect is also left-handed. Actually, he is ambidextrous, but he prefers his left hand. We know the bridge man is left-handed because he has a left-handed gun holster strapped to his right side with a semi-automatic pistol in it. We know the bridge man has a gun on him, as it can clearly be seen and outlined under his jacket. We believe that the bridge man's gun is either unregistered or stolen. If stolen, we believe he may have stolen it from Ron Logan somehow. If this is true, we do not understand this aspect of the case. The bridge man is bow-legged. The suspect is also bow-legged, probably from extensive horse riding as a youth. This is one reason we favor an Amish or German Baptist connection for the suspect, because the Amish ride horses everywhere. The bridge man is duck-footed, that is, his feet go outward when he walks. The suspect is also duck-footed. The bridge man has an injury to his left knee, which is obvious in the moving images of him walking on the bridge. The suspect also has a serious injury to his left knee, has several deep stitches on it, and sometimes wears a brace. We have a photograph of the suspect's scarred knee and a photograph of the suspect wearing what appears to be a knee brace on his left knee. The bridge man is 50 to 60 years old. The suspect is 52 years old. The bridge man is 5'8 to 5'10 and weighs 180 to 200 pounds. The suspect is 5'8 and when last weighed was 170 pounds, but that was a few years ago, and he seems to have gained weight after his recent release from prison. The bridge man appears to be in good shape for his age based on the way he easily navigates that rickety, frightening bridge. Being an avid outdoorsman, the suspect has been in great shape his whole life, but he has recently developed a paunch as a recent middle-age development. The bridge man smokes and is smoking during the crime. He may also smoke cigarillos, as a cigarillo wrapper was found at the scene. The suspect also smokes, and he does smoke cigarillos. We have a video of the suspect smoking a cigarillo. And, okay, just a quick aside point here with this. Is it possible a rapper was nearby the scene and was at the scene before the girls were put to the scene and has nothing to do with the crime? Again, this is the wilderness. There's rappers and various trash that can be found that's not too far away from trails. So the other thing we haven't really discussed, is it possible someone stumbled upon the crime scene that was not responsible for the crime but didn't report it out of fear, possibly they're a criminal? So it's tough to really account for a lot of these variables. Is it possible someone stumbled across the scene, a criminal, and then they left, and some of the rumors were from this individual that did not want to report it to the police or say that he found it, even though he did, even if he was not involved in the crime in any way? But carrying on here, the suspect was photographed the night before the crime in Indianapolis. We have two of these photographs. In one of these photographs, the suspect is standing next to a white compact car. We believe that a white compact vehicle was used by Bridgeman to commit this crime. We believe that these photographs were used by the suspect to foreshadow the crime he may have intended to commit the next day by leaving tantalizing clues, which is something he loves to do. In the number and strangeness of the tantalizing clues the suspect leaves about his purported crimes, the suspect resembles the Zodiac Killer, BTK, and others. The suspect also likes to ridicule and mock law enforcement. And do law enforcement know that? During the press conferences when they believe that he was in the room, and they believe they've even talked to him or interviewed him in some capacity, that's interesting. If this case ever goes to trial, it may go down in history on the same level as those other crimes where the criminal left clues behind to tease and taunt law enforcement. The suspect's background and life story. The suspect resides within a 20-mile radius of Delphi and continues to reside there at this moment. The suspect is a former resident who grew up in Delphi, right around the area of the crime, and still knows all of the landowners around there, including Ron Logan, Marvin Sandifer, the Mearses, and Ivan Brumbaugh. The suspect is either Amish, shunned, or German Baptist, or is strongly associated with one of those communities. He knows the area around the crime scene, including Logan's Land, Deer Creek itself, and the bridge like the back of his hand. The suspect has a low education level, but probably graduated from high school. The suspect has a very messy divorce with his ex-wife, including violent child custody issues. The suspect did a short stint in prison for badly assaulting his ex-wife. The suspect has a long record of mostly minor crimes with some jail stints and one short prison stint. All crimes were committed in Indiana. Crimes were mostly repeated drunk driving, but also invading the home of menacing and badly beating up an ex-wife. All of his ex-wives, how many does he have no contact orders against him, which implies domestic violence on his part. In terms of crimes for which he has not been caught, he has engaged in petty theft. The suspect is no longer employed, but in the past he worked at different jobs, including handyman and electrician. Social aspects. The suspect has strong, warm feelings towards his 2 grown children and seems to have a great relationship with them. The suspect has a new girlfriend about his age who may be a native of the region. She is a kind, sweet, gentle lady who absolutely adores the suspect and nearly worships him as a god. They appear to have a stable, warm, loving relationship. She is completely clueless about his dark side, but he is good at hiding that anyway. Relations with the ex-wife are not known, although both the suspect and the ex-wife recently showed up for his son's high school graduation. Some say that the suspect has strong hatred for his ex-wife, but this is uncertain. The suspect has a circle of warm friends with whom he has good relations. These are very masculine, tough, hard, outdoor men of about the same age who think he is completely on the up and up. He's fooling them all. The suspect can seem quite warm and friendly, like your best friend. He is easy to befriend, and when befriended, seems charming and disarming, and seems increasingly harmless the more you get to know him. Psychological profile. The suspect has an Axis 2 cluster B pathology. The suspect is a psychopath and has narcissistic personality disorder, malignant narcissism. The suspect has no Axis 1 disorders. He is not psychotic. In fact, he is very sane, almost too sane, and that is part of how he gets away with his purported crimes. There are no signs of mood disorder. The suspect appears calm with little or no anxiety issues. The suspect is strongly heterosexual, although rage and hatred towards females seems apparent with the crime the suspect may have committed. These feelings are otherwise not obvious in his life. The suspect sometimes displays hostility to women. A lot of men do this when provoked, but he does it with little provocation, and his reactions are quite extreme, often including vague rape and death threats. The suspect is very masculine in the manner of many middle-aged men in the area. He is a hard-ass, a tough guy who uses foul language and has a rough and sometimes menacing way of speaking. The suspect seems normal, but the following adjectives also describe him well. Sneaky, devious, unreadable, slick, bad boy, naughty, playful, outlaw, gleam in his eye, and rebellious. He appears to be hiding something or keeping some sort of secret. There is a general feeling of what you see is not what you get. He is a chameleon in a few different ways. He is an enigma, puzzling and very hard to figure out. An actor who sees life as a series of roles. He does not appear suspicious at all to most observers. Instead, he hides in plain sight and blends right in with society. He is very capable of fooling people, an Academy Award actor who sees life as an endless series of roles to be played based on whatever the needs of the given situation may be. The suspect is capable of fooling people so easily because he is a sneaky, devious, underhanded, conspiring, and plotting man. Most of his actions are well plotted and planned, even calculated to the point of being choreographed. The suspect displays little spontaneity other than regular rages. His IQ is surely within 84 to 116 normal range, 2/3 of the population, and probably within the 90 to 110 range, half the population, though he may be towards the lower end. However, the suspect is much more intelligent than he appears and possesses a sheer animal, devious, and utterly cunning intelligence. In terms of this sort of intelligence, he has a genius IQ. He is a very hard man to fool, and he is an expert at reading others. The suspect has a violent hair-trigger temper which can be set off at any time with little provocation. Although he has committed acts of serious violence in the past, this temper nevertheless generally takes a verbal rather than physical form and consists of menace, threats, stalking, harassment, terrorizing, and intimidation. The suspect takes little or no responsibility for his actions and blames others for everything. He attacks others and then claims to be acting in self-defense. The suspect is a pathological liar. Truth is mixed in with lies and fabrications to the point where he believes his own lies and even gets caught in them. Reactions when caught in his pathological lying are temper tantrums, rage, ranting, and veiled threats via angry and menacing language. In his court cases, the suspect engaged in shameless pathological defensive lying and blaming of others. The suspect has the following life themes: you can't win, they've got it in for me, life is a game, I'm fooling them. Suspect verbal style. The suspect has a versatile verbal style and can seem sentimental, poetic, moving, and even philosophical. He is capable of fooling people into thinking he is a person who cares deeply about life's small and kind wonders. Verbal defenses are denial, rage, rants, and especially redirection. Other defenses include an excellent ability at distracting people and directing attention away from what is important. For this, he utilizes red herrings, irrelevancies, redirection, minor details, fussing, wrong turns, wrong directions, wrong way streets, red herrings, and misdirection. He also uses countless aliases and even steals identities to make new aliases. The suspect is also a storyteller and likes to tell long, rambling, colorful Mark Twain-style stories that tell it like it is about what seem to be ordinary people in ordinary communities, but in fact are anything but that. He can be quite entertaining in this role. He turns off some who find him a quasi-literate blowhard, but others find him quite entertaining as his stories could be seen as charming. The motivation for this crime is hard to figure out, but we suspect it may be similar to many serial killers. Although there is no evidence yet that Bridgman has killed other people, he certainly may have. Hence, we believe he is a serial killer type instead of a serial killer. In that case, the motivation for the crime is of a sexually sadistic, psychopathic serial type. Appearance, lifestyle, habits, beliefs, opinions. The suspect has one large tattoo on his upper right front shoulder. We do not know what this is a tattoo of. Lifestyle. The suspect has some sort of gang ties with the Aryan Brotherhood, possibly as a result of his incarceration. We have photographs of the suspect throwing Aryan Brotherhood gang signs. Nevertheless, we have little evidence that he's a white supremacist, and on his Facebook page he comes across as an anti-racist, even a coastal liberal variety. He may have only joined the AB for protection in prison. The suspect appears to be a carefree practical joker who lives a playful, laid-back, easygoing lifestyle where most things are jokes and little is to be taken seriously, life of the party. Habits. The suspect is a regular drug user. He mostly uses marijuana, which he enjoys a lot. We also believe he may be deeply involved in methamphetamine, even to the point of manufacture and dealing. The suspect was formerly a very heavy drinker, and many problems, especially legal ones, resulted from this. We believe he may no longer drink. Beliefs and opinions. The suspect's philosophical outlook can be summed up as a cynical one that humans are lousy animals driven by low base interests and who are corrupt at their core. He accuses law enforcement and small-town government people in the Midwest as corrupt. He paints of tobacco road sleeves in the underbelly of Mayberry RFD small-town white America, is offended, cynical, fatalistic, and somewhat disgusted, the good citizen outraged by sleazy, omnipresent corruption. The suspect has a very low opinion of law enforcement in Delphi and the surrounding area, as he claims that they ran him out of town as a criminal pest and chronic drunk driving offender. He has a grudge against local law enforcement. The suspect's political beliefs are quite liberal. He comes across as a sort of aging hippie type, unusual for Indiana. Suspect role in the investigation. The suspect has inserted himself deeply in the investigation to an almost unprecedented degree. He is now one of the most well-known people who are trying to find the killer. In part, this is being done to try to divert attention away from himself, but another factor seems to be narcissism, possibly even malignant narcissism, which means he can't help himself. He also loves the limelight, the sound of his own voice, is something of a publicity hound, likes the idea that he is hiding right under the noses of everyone and getting away with it, and thinks this is some sort of joke. The suspect's attitude toward the investigation is hard to figure. We believe he is nervous and fearful of being caught, but also sees the whole thing as a hilarious game of cat and mouse. He's fooling law enforcement and all of society, getting away with murder and hiding right under their noses. He also seems to be playing a game of neener neener, I'm the killer and you'll never catch me, haha. In this sense, he resembles the Zodiac and BTK. The suspect sought out law enforcement early in the investigation in order to leave a tip. We have a video of him calling in this phone tip. We believe he did this as part of a plan to frame an innocent man. We believe he was originally going to commit this crime and then lay low, but changed after he was photographed and recorded on audio. Over the next month, he then formulated an elaborate case to try to frame an innocent man, a former workmate who he had a falling out with. This consisted of a very long and elaborate theory which did not make much sense on examination. Further, the man he attempted to frame did not seem like the type to do such a crime. He also included a number of videos as part of this plan. He then went out on the internet and tried to promulgate this theory on a number of websites and on Facebook and YouTube. He was fairly successful at this until some people started catching on to his scheme. Okay, so let's go back to the original update. Reportedly, a photo of a white compact car near the Monon High Bridge on the day of the murders. However, this car does not match up to the white vehicle photographed in front of the woman's house. There are suggestions that this photo may not have even been taken on that day or in that place. It has been traced back to a woman who is trying to frame her ex-husband for this crime, so this photo may simply be a photo of his vehicle. Bottom line is this photo has no relevance to the case. Okay, that's a mind shock. So is this Dodge Dart photo? Does that explain why this particular woman randomly photographed this guy, her ex-husband, and his vehicle, and then tried to tie it to the Delphi case as some kind of opportunity frame job? Again, I don't know. And how did they determine that? Either way, continuing on here, despite the red herring and the dead end regarding the photo above, we are hearing that more people are coming forward saying that they say a white late model Dodge Dart with paper plates at the bridge around the time of the crimes, but no photos have emerged yet of this vehicle at Monon Bridge that day. So did this woman simply have an ex-husband that also had a white Dodge Dart? I mean, that's not the most rare vehicle in the world. Although it wasn't incredibly popular either. In 2012, there were 25,303 Dodge Darts sold. In 2013, there were 83,388. In 2014, 83,858. In 2015, 87,392. In 2016, 44,050. And in 2017, 10,082. So yeah, it's not that popular either. Now, what percentage of those were white? Apparently, there were only 12 colors. There were 2 white colors, bright white and bright silver. So the whites were roughly 12.25% of global production numbers, for example, in 2013. So somewhere between 10 to 15% white. So yeah, it's not the rarest car, but it's also not a Camry or Corolla either. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something there, and it's definitely worth pursuing. It's rare enough to the point where there might not be tens of thousands of them or even thousands of them. I mean, there's probably a limited number of white late model Dodge Darts in the Delphi area at the time. So perhaps there is something there. I don't know. Now, if this woman who wanted to get back at her ex, if her ex happened to have one of these white Dodge Darts, did she take that opportunity to try to make life difficult for him? Who knows? You know what would be kind of crazy if she didn't, if he really was involved, but she didn't know that, and she was just trying to make his life difficult because she didn't like him. That would be truly mind shocking. But okay, so let's continue on here. There are different stories regarding the woman who took these photos and the man in the photo. The woman was reportedly shown a number of photos of different men and asked if any of them were the man with the white car. When shown a photo of our suspect, the woman supposedly pulled her car over to the side of the road, leaned out the car door, and vomited. So she had a very violent, involuntary reaction to a photo of our suspect. However, before this happened, she was shown a number of photos of possible persons who the man by the white car might be, and the woman was saying yes to all of them. Obviously, they are not all the man by the white car. Unfortunately, this witness has serious credibility issues. Okay. More about the home where the photo was taken. Unfortunately, okay. All right, so if this is all true, is the coincidence stack kind of crazy? So this woman, now she's not named, and the day before the murders, two people come over to visit her daughter, and they just randomly go near the Monon High Bridge to cook meth. The next day, this random guy with a white Dodge Dart, who happens to be her ex-husband, is at her house. I mean, I don't know. What's going on here? We're going really far into MINDSHOCK land now. The notion that there were meth cookers in the woods that afternoon led to all sorts of what I call the meth theory. Most involved these dealers and cookers, and apparently the three people above, killing the two girls for all sorts of possible reasons, mostly that the girls happened upon the meth cooking operation. These theories in general are no good, and I reject all of them. Nevertheless, over the period of between 2 and 12 a.m. and between 2:12, 2:15, these three were gone and were reportedly cooking meth at some point during this time frame. But it's not exactly known when or where. All of these people were high out of their minds on meth and heroin for 3 days, and all used a benzodiazepine that is known for pretty much erasing your memory. The daughter came home late on 2/15, beaten up, and complained that she had been beaten and gang raped and at some point over this period. Okay, wow. So there are people cooking meth in the woods near the bridge. There's all these possible assaults and rapes going on, all within these 2 days. This is really bizarre. People thought this may have happened in the woods, maybe when the girls were being killed. But this gang rape probably occurred elsewhere, probably in someone's home. So it's just randomly happening at the same time that Libby and Abby are being killed. At the same time, there is rumored to be a photo of men on their knees with their pants down, kneeling around the body of a naked woman. For some time, people wondered if this was a photo of what was done to the girls, but now it appears that if this photo exists, it depicts this gang rape of this woman's daughter and not any rape or murder of the girls. Weird. Okay, so this woman's daughter was reportedly a willing partner in the gang rape, as it was done as a gang initiation to initiate her into some gang. Now, what does willing mean? If they're all on meth out of their minds, is she able to knowingly consent? If they're all on meth? I mean, I don't know. Doesn't that impair your judgment to the point that you would technically not be able to legally consent to something? The gang appears to be an Aryan Brotherhood white supremacist organization, but it is not the Aryan Brotherhood. Instead, it is some local group not affiliated with them. After the initiation, this woman's daughter became the property of the gang and they could do whatever they wanted to her. They could sell her, give her away to other people, force her to prostitute herself, all sorts of things. That definitely sounds like a gang you want to join, right? As a result of the gang rape in which this other individual probably participated, the woman's daughter was given to this individual by the gang, her boyfriend for the next 6 weeks, but apparently she was forced into this relationship. When she returned home, the woman called the police on all of them. And one of these individuals was arrested that day, February 15th, on meth charges. In the aftermath of the 3-day ordeal, the woman's daughter reportedly confessed in part to the murder of the girls. Okay, so is this one of the reasons why law enforcement has been relatively tight-lipped? If there's some kind of meth ring gang with all of this going on and they were so high on drugs they don't know exactly what happened and they're confessing but there's no evidence, what would law enforcement do in that situation? Would they release this evidence to the public or not? This is kind of bizarre. So this woman's daughter, the woman who apparently took a photo of her ex-husband with this white Dodge Dart, her daughter is supposedly part of this meth ring gang operation. So she reportedly confessed in part to the murder of the girls. She stated that she wanted to know what it felt like to stab someone, so she stabbed someone. She did not know who she stabbed, when, or where. Now here's the crazy part. If these people really are on meth completely out of their minds and they're just these black spots in their memory and they truly can't remember, wow, I mean, this is crazy. Would that occur for the case not being able to be solved? But the problem is, what about the evidence? Wouldn't there be physical evidence of this if it really did occur? Furthermore, all of their minds were as good as erased for the 3-day period due to the benzo ingestion. I am not sure if her confession has been turned into the police. So I guess she confessed to someone else, not the... Okay, so maybe the police don't know this? Okay, or it was reported to the police, they didn't take it seriously. Is that a possibility? We believe this is a false confession, the result of a beating, a gang rape, and 3 days of heavy drug use. Anyway, she has no details about the stabbing. Furthermore, she does not seem capable of murdering these girls. The individuals she was with are pretty lousy men, but from what I know about them, I can't see them murdering these girls, especially for no particular reason. The woman has been interviewed by both the FBI and the Indiana State Police. Huh. We do not know what has come of this, but our information is that law enforcement does not believe the meth theory of the murders is a valid hypothesis. As far as this woman's daughter goes, at some point she was sold to a man up in Wisconsin. She had to go up there and live with this man, who bought her for a month or so. Later she was in rehab. This woman makes a lot of dubious choices, has terrible friends, and has gotten herself into a heap of trouble, but I don't think she's a murderer. Okay, the actual murders, rumors. The following consists of a number of rumors about how the girls were killed. Most of these rumors have not yet been validated and should be taken with a huge grain of salt. However, the rumors in italics are apparently true to the best of our knowledge. Okay, so we went over these previously. Okay, all of these rumors. Okay, new rumors. There are some shocking new rumors that have recently surfaced. The blockbuster is from the wife of a law enforcement officer who was working on the case. Her husband could not sleep at night, and he finally broke down and told her what was done to the girls. The law enforcement officer reported that branches or bundles of sticks had been shoved into the girls' genitals. Furthermore, the girls had numerous stab wounds and branches or stick bundles were shoved into these too. There had been a long-standing rumors that one of the girls had a stake rammed into her from above. We have been attacked viciously for reporting this. We may have tried very hard to negate that rumor, but we have never been able to do so. Now with this new rumor, it seems finally that there was something to the stake rumor all along. Another is the involvement of a large knife with a gut hook in this crime. After the crime happened, law enforcement were asking around at local hardware stores if anyone had bought a large knife with a gut hook recently. They asked this at the CVS near the bridge. There are two possibilities here. One is that a knife like this was used on the girls, and law enforcement were able to determine this by looking at the nature of the wounds. The other possibility is that the killer used this knife in the crime and then left it at the scene for whatever reason. At the moment, we favor the theory that the knife was left at the scene by the killer, but there's no hard evidence one way or the other. We also have new information about the witnesses who saw the bridgeman in the area that day who were used to draw the composite. One wonders where the witnesses saw the bridgeman. One rumor says he was seen parked in his car next to the cemetery. The other stories are simply that a few people saw the bridgeman around the bridge at the time. Okay, the bridgeman and our suspect. Too many coincidences. We believe that the bridgeman is wearing boots from the Indiana Packers plant in town. The suspect formerly worked at Indiana Packers for a significant period of time, from the mid-90s to the mid-2000s, and may have retained work boots from that job. We believe that the bridgeman is a fisherman. The suspect is an avid fisherman, almost to the point of obsession and fanaticism. The bridgeman is definitely left-handed. The suspect is also left-handed. Actually, he's ambidextrous, but prefers his left hand. And we actually went over all of this info of their suspect. We believe that the bridgeman's gun is an M1911 early model pre-1986. As far as how this gun was acquired, one theory is that this gun was purchased also from the Amish, as they have many such guns available for cheap. The other possibility is that Bridgeman stole this gun from Ron Logan of all people. In December, Logan had many guns stolen from his house by a young druggy woman he had living there. If this gun is stolen from Logan, it may be from this heist, as no doubt these stolen guns were distributed around. We are not sure at the moment which of these two theories is true, or even if either of them are. However, we believe that the type of model number and year is correct, and the ultimate provenance of this gun may well have been via a purchase from the Amish. As you can see above, the Bridgeman has 3 different objects that we believe may have been purchased from the Amish. We believe that the Bridgeman has some connection to the Amish community. He is either Amish himself, possibly shunned Amish, or he grew up around the Amish and German Baptists and knows them very well. Indeed, we believe the Bridgeman grew up in Delphi, not far from where the crime occurred. Next, we move on to another object in the Bridgeman's possession that has caused a lot of puzzlement. No one quite knows what this object is. We had a few hypotheses of what it was, but they did not test out well. We believe we have now settled on an excellent theory of what this object is. See the photo above and also the longer distance photo of the Bridgeman above to see the object for yourself. It is definitely there. It is a strange rectangular object that is somehow strapped to the bridge guy's left pant leg. When we blew up this photo, at first all we saw was a strange W object. We had no idea what it was. One of our sleuths asked at work, and a woman at work said she thought it was something called a net fishing bag that fishermen sometimes use. She had one herself, but we still needed to explain the rectangular object that the net fishing bag did not explain it well. Upon rotating the object, we were able to see it better. Now we could see a bag-shaped object. The net fishing bag enclosing the rectangular object. But what was the rectangular object? Via this view, we decided that the rectangular object was a knife-carrying kit with knives in it. We counted 3 knives in the kit based on the shape. We felt that they were fishing fillet knives. So the rectangular object is a net fishing bag with a knife-carrying kit inside with 3 fishing fillet knives. The photo below shows some of the type of knives that may be inside this knife kit. If this theory of the object is valid, more things become clear. The Bridgeman may very well be a fisherman. After all, he has a fishing kit on him. He may also be a hunter based on the deer kit. On the other hand, deer kits like that are sometimes also called a fisherman's kit. We believe another key to the crime is fishing, fish, and fishermen. Next, we'll move on to the Bridgeman's boots. First of all, we believe he is wearing boots and not sneakers or tennis shoes. The boots are black. Notice the white stripe going all around the boots. Now look closely at the boots below. Several days after the crime, law enforcement released this photo of these boots in an evidence bag. Then they said that the boots had nothing to do with the crime, but law enforcement always says things like that. A couple of days before, Indiana State Police had raided Indiana Packers. The stated reason was a bomb threat, but we believe there was no bomb threat. Instead, that was just an excuse to shut down the plant and raid. After law enforcement were done with the raid, they walked away with a pair of Indiana Packers work boots. A few days later, a photo of these boots is released innocently to the media. However, they are in an evidence bag. Obviously, law enforcement felt these were the model of boots that the bridgeman was wearing. When we blow up the bridgeman's boots, we see now that his black boots with the white stripe all around them are an excellent match for the boots in the evidence bag. The blow-up of the bridgeman below is interesting for two reasons. First of all, he is not smoking something in that photo. The cigarette in the right of his mouth was photoshopped in. It is not known if the smoke on the left of side of his face was also faked. However, one thing is obvious in this photo and in any photo of the bridgeman, and that is his massive nose. However, look at the composite below. See any massive nose? Of course not, so what gives? Look back at that huge nose in the blow-up, but no matter what, it's huge in any video of the bridgeman. Many have remarked on his huge nose, but he has no huge nose. His nose is quite average. Solution to the problem? Simple. The bridgeman is disguising himself by wearing a fake nose. Voila. Problem solved. The motivation for this crime is hard to figure out, but we suspect it may be similar to many serial killers. Although there is no evidence yet that the bridgeman has killed other people beyond this crime, he certainly may have. Hence, we believe the bridgeman is a serial killer type instead of a serial killer. In that case, the motivation for the crime is that of a sexually sadistic, psychopathic serial type killer. We know much more about the bridgeman, but are not releasing it due to fears of harming the investigation. All of this information was officially turned over to law enforcement on Friday, July 21st. And one more point about the Dodge Dart. Let's go to WNDU News. And this was published April 30th, 2018. Indiana murder suspect killed in crash. Police searching for second man. An Indiana murder suspect is one of three people who are dead after the car they were in crossed the center line and hit a garbage truck head on. It happened around 8:20 Sunday morning, State Road 15 near County Road 1100 South in Wabash County. Police don't know why the Dodge Dart crossed the center line and hit the truck. 19-year-old driver Teresa Williams, 21-year-old passengers Thomas Reed and Caleb Myron were killed. Myron is a suspect in a murder last week in LaFontaine, Indiana. Jordan Richards, 22, was shot and killed in his home on Wednesday. One of the guns stolen from his home was found in the Dodge after the crash. Now police say the other murder suspect is still on the loose. Corey Kelch, 22, is considered armed and dangerous. He is 5'8", weighs approximately 125 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. If you see him, call the police. And it doesn't say whether this was a white Dodge Dart or not, but it's just curious. Again, we went over the production numbers. This is not like a random Toyota. I mean, this Dodge Dart is not one of the most popular vehicles. If this one was white, is it possible it's connected to the other Dodge Dart in the Delphi case? And again, some people are alleging it might be a red herring. But again, we really don't know. Okay, so continuing to Robert Lindsay's newest posts here. This is April 13th, 2021. So a little over a month ago, stunning rumors about the murders and related matters now officially proven. And this is, of course, if you take his word on things. And if I didn't do the disclaimer earlier, I mean, this guy clearly has some psychotic tendencies. I do not recommend reading most of his other blog. It is just, it's really bizarre. Really, really bizarre. But, what's strange is some of what he's writing here about Delphi is corroborated in other places, as a very small portion, but still. So if he really does have this law enforcement source, again, his law enforcement source might be giving him information that the source believes to be true, even if it's not. We have to keep that in mind. So he also rants endlessly about how he is perceived by others. I mean, clear issues here, mental issues. But people should listen to me, which they never do. I mean, again, it's crazy. But he is, these are his comments on even his own suspect, Mr. X. Okay, finally, after 4 years acquisition of good law enforcement sources, it turns out that we have acquired a sleuth who is a former detective. He's bored and has nothing to do, so we recruited him to sleuth for us. He is happy to do so. He has connections with current law enforcement officers in Indiana. We are not sure if we should say where, but they are not in the town of Delphi or in Carroll County. Yes, insane, discredited liars like us have former detectives as part of our team. And again, we really don't know if Robert Lindsay's story about his 200 plus members of just this private sleuthing is even correct. But out of all the individuals out there, it's not hard to believe that approximately 200 individuals, I mean, there's Facebook groups with more than that, people that are kind of sleuthing, so to speak. So again, I don't know which way this would more likely be. We sent him off to dig into Mr. X. He went away for a bit and came back a while later with proof from law enforcement that some of the things we have been reporting as rumors here are absolute fact. We do not believe his Indiana law enforcement connection are working on the case that we are aware of. Instead, they are law enforcement street officers, but they have learned a number of things via the law enforcement grapevine. We would like to point out that we have finally some very good sources. You can't do better than law enforcement, and have acquired case documents we have been looking for 4 years. Many more of the things we say in our articles are going to be shown to be true because our sources have gotten so much better. Hence, the speculations and rumors will rest on a more solid and factual basis. As time goes by, we get more and more correct on here as we start filling in the blanks of the jigsaw puzzle. We have worked closely with law enforcement in the past. A few years ago, an Indiana State Police detective contacted us and asked for everything we had on a suspect they were looking into. We went down the rabbit hole about this man for 2 to 3 years, but we finally decided while he's an awful person, he didn't kill those girls. In the past, a local sheriff's deputy in a county near Delphi was one of our most active members, particularly with graphics. He was hiding incognito. And again, I'm not sure how much Lindsay believes in law enforcement corruption, but he was stating that this individual, I mean, there's a lot of different theories. One of them is this individual's alibi is, in fact, Delphi law enforcement. And that other Delphi law enforcement are skeptical of this particular law enforcement officer that provided the alibi for the individual in question. So yeah, there's a lot of madness going on. Okay, Mr. X is innocent until proven guilty. I am not revealing the name of the main suspect here and will only refer to him as Mr. X. I also request all commenters to also refer to him as Mr. X. I do this as a simple measure to try to protect his identity. I do not feel comfortable using his initials or certainly his name. I do not want to see this man or his family harassed in any way. Do not harass or bother this man or his family in any way, shape, or form. No one knows if he did this crime or not. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Now, that is a sign of objectivity, which is more than what can be said with other podcasters, commentators on this case. Yes, this man is the prime suspect at the moment, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. Twice in the Evansdale murders, law enforcement thought they were certain that they had the right man. Twice they were wrong. They have thought they had the right guy several times in the Zodiac case, but all of the suspects fell through. And that's another interesting point there. A lot of the coincidence theorists and the authority-worshipping cultists, they just hang on every word of law enforcement, completely ignoring how often law enforcement is wrong. Just because law enforcement said ABC doesn't mean it's true. XYZ could be true, especially when law enforcement has so many different options and they move it forward as if it were the truth. Of course, there's a lot of innocent people in prison, or innocent for the crimes they were accused of. Maybe they were guilty of other crimes, but yeah, it's madness all around. Mr. X is not even at the person of interest stage in this case. Person of interest is a much higher standard than unnamed suspect, and he hasn't even risen to that level yet. No one knows if Mr. X is guilty or not. I happen to think he probably did it, but what do I know? Law enforcement doesn't have much in the way of good, solid evidence against Mr. X at this time. They have enough suggestive evidence to make them think he did it, but if you look at the nature of their actual evidence, it's awfully thin. In fact, the rumor and a long-standing one at that, is that law enforcement simply does not have enough evidence against Mr. X to take the case to court. DAs require a very high standard of evidence to bring a homicide charge against someone. If the DA does not think he has enough evidence in a homicide case to win in court, they won't take it to trial. At this point, they don't even have enough for an arrest. Say, for instance, law enforcement arrested Mr. X and charged him with the double homicides of these two girls. If they tried to take it to court, I am almost certain that the judge would throw it out before it even got to the trial stage. The judge would say, you don't have enough evidence against this man to take this case to court, and throw it out of court. That's very embarrassing. Furthermore, homicide is the most serious thing you can charge anyone with. The judicial system likes to make sure that they get it right. Sure they do. If only to protect the due process rights of the accused. There are cases like this all over the country. A famous one is the Lewiston killer in Lewiston, Idaho in the late 70s. He killed at least 5 people. Specializing in young women, the police chief says he is 99% sure that the main suspect, who is named, committed the crimes. He has since moved back to North Carolina, and young women have begun to disappear from the trials there now. There is a suspected child killer in the Bay Area who is responsible for 5 to 10 child murders. They don't have enough to take him to trial. A book has been published accusing him of this crime. He is brazen, openly admits to being a pedophile, goes to the victims' graves and leaves flowers, and visits the victims' families to offer solace for their losses. See the sort of games these guys play. A police chief in a town over there accused the man of committing these crimes. The man sued the city and won $50,000. This is why you don't hear law enforcement coming out and openly accusing people of committing serious crimes like homicide unless they are sure they did it and have enough evidence to take them to trial. And these are just the suspected serials running around free. There are many cases of homicides or attempted homicides where law enforcement feels that they know who did it, but don't have enough evidence to take them to trial. If Mr. X were on trial for these murders today and I were in the jury, I would vote to acquit him. Yes, I think Mr. X did the crime, but my opinion isn't worth anything. And if Mr. X was being tried today and I was on the jury, I would certainly vote to acquit. Because it doesn't matter whether I think he's guilty or not. The state has to prove it. If I were on the jury, the only thing I would care about was whether the state had proved that Mr. X committed this crime. And with the evidence they currently have, they haven't proven it. So I would definitely hang the jury and let Mr. X walk. And in all probability, Bridge Guy would be free to walk the streets again. That's the price you pay to live in a free society. Wow. Okay, very interesting there, but it is curious that Robert Lindsay, not that he would actually do this if he was on the jury, we really don't know, but he says he would. So he does have a clear understanding of how the court system works, which again is a bit more than we can say about a lot of other people. Time to give up on all these POIs. This is just getting ridiculous. No one has to believe me when I tell them that law enforcement has a suspect who they think committed the Delphi murders. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Maybe law enforcement is wrong. They've been wrong many times before in cases like this, particularly in sex murders of little children. They often have their eye on one suspect for a long time until it turns out he's no good. Anyway, I think there are a number of suspects that ought to be put to rest. Ron Logan. Enough already, give it a rest, damn it. How many times has he been cleared? 242? Maybe we need to clear him a 243rd time, then just to make sure. However, we believe that an interesting theory is that Bridge Guy may have attempted to frame Ron Logan with this crime for obscure reasons. Bridge Guy was dressed in clothes similar to what Ron wore, and he took the girls to Ron's land and killed them there. Now that is a curious point, because the people that really believe Ron Logan did it, would Ron Logan be that dumb though? Because to wear those clothes, to kill him on his property, it does seem like it makes more sense that someone would be trying to frame him than him being the perpetrator. Unless, of course, there was some kind of situation where he and another criminal planned to take them elsewhere, and something happened and there was a falling out with Ron Logan, and then they tried to frame him, and he really was involved in the crime. Because then that could sort of make sense. But again, unless he has a split personality, something like Stephen Avery that's trying to frame himself, it seems unlikely that Ron Logan would himself leave the bodies on his own property. Mike Patty, just stop, okay? He's innocent. Leave the poor man alone, for God's sake. Hasn't he suffered enough? No, he didn't kill his own granddaughter. Damn it. Come on, people. Now, Mike Patty's a little bit more curious. Everything from his behavior to his look to even supposedly bodily injuries that he had on his person in the day after the murders occurred. And there's a lot there, and supposedly he is not Liberty's relative by blood. Okay, Becky Patty, obviously they're not accusing her of the homicides. The accusation is that she knows something or knows way too much and is covering for someone, presumably the killer. I doubt it. No one's been hurt by this case more than Becky Patty. It's as if she took the grief of a whole town under her breast and pledged it to suffer for them all, Jesus-like. Not quite sainthood, but getting there. I heard that at the 2019 conference, she burst into tears. Well, of course she did. It's no surprise. She still hasn't been able to process this, assuming such a thing can ever be processed. She has channeled her pain into grief and sadness. Others close to the victims, who I will not name, have channeled their grief into rage and lashing out at everyone around them. It's an understandable reaction, but they're still not pleasant to be around. This person is externalizing their pain into rage and projecting it outwards pretty much at the world. I won't reveal who I am talking about here, although it should be obvious. I will say that Libby's birth mother has also dealt with her loss by turning rageful. Both of these people were probably ragers before, so it's not like they did a U-turn. And how would he even know this? This is why people accuse him of just being a complete psychotic. Robert Lindsay, of course, is who I'm reading right here. Of course, we empathize with their losses, but sympathy wears thin when someone is screaming in your face. Let's hope they find some peace. I mean, is he speaking from experience here? Has Robert Lindsay himself approached these people? He said he didn't, but again, can we trust him? Becky Patty is internalizing her pain and putting it outwards, which is at least more pro-social. Someone like Mike Patty may be dealing with the pain by disassociating, as we men do. People think we are stoic, but really we are disassociating. The feelings are there. You push them, shove them out at others, or disassociate them into the ether, or better yet, your subconscious. Everyone's got their style. Whatever gets you through the night. The last person on earth to protect the killer is poor Becky Patty. God bless her mortal soul. Derek German, Libby's father, meth dealer, convict who served time in prison and supposedly ratted people out to get a lower sentence. He has dealt with his grief with silence and hiding himself away. I don't know this man very well, but he wasn't in on this crime. And it's curious, how would Robert Lindsay know this? He's saying that even his Mr. X, his person of interest, his main suspect who he thinks is probably guilty, but he's not 100% sure, yet he's 100% sure on Derek German. Now, again, I'm not saying Derek German is guilty by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm saying if you weren't there, how do you know what happened either way? Obviously, there's no reason to point the finger and say it was definitely Derek German. If you weren't there, you wouldn't know, but it is it's hard to dismiss the meth background, especially if there were meth dealers or meth cookers in that area, even at the exact time of the murders, which, again, we don't know. It seems like the rumors are very persistent that there's some meth going on in the area. Kelsey German, sister of Libby. Kelsey's DNA was the only DNA found on the bodies. Kelsey has been investigated quite a bit, and she has been interviewed a few times by the FBI, including a couple times at her school. For whatever reason, she confuses facts all the time and can't keep her story straight. I have no idea why she's doing this, but it's not because she's the killer of her own sister, for God's sake. Kelsey German has been cleared. And again, there's a difference between being cleared from the murders, and there's a difference between possibly knowing who the murderers actually were. Is it possible Kelsey knew someone associated with the crime, possibly not even knowing that they knew that they executed the crime? And that's where a lot of the murkiness goes in. And I don't think anybody was suggesting that any of the interviews from the FBI or law enforcement were because they suspected her. It was to get information out of her about other individuals who might have known Libby and Abby. Okay, flannel shirt guy probably shouldn't use his real name, but he's on everybody's suspect list. Again, I went over this on the previous MINDSHOCK episodes as well. He was one of the original witnesses who saw Bridge Guy and gave a description. Now he says he never saw Bridge Guy at all. I guess he can't make up his mind. He's also thoroughly lawyered up and he's not saying a word. I get it. He's a greedy businessman with dollar signs in fluttering eyes that sound like clanging cash registers every time he blinks. His favorite color is green, like the woods, like the loot. Hey, it's a capitalist country, right? The theory is that he was in on these murders for mercenary reasons such as malign desire to purchase Ron Logan's land. Sure, he's a greedy businessman, but I doubt if he's that greedy. I have seen quite a few photographs of this guy, no doubt of the lousy good old boy network. So much evidence in this blighted town. Just looking at him, I can't see him being in on this, but I had the same feeling when I saw a photo of mild-mannered, middle-aged, frumpy, beer-bellied Mr. X, family man and loving father extraordinaire. Flannel shirt guy, along with others present at the bridge, have been investigated as possible lookouts for bridge guy. Not because there's any evidence that they were lookouts, but more because everyone in that situation at the time of the murders is being looked at that way. I'd be surprised if he were in on this, but stranger things have happened. Okay, so that's a little bit more of an objective take there. And again, yeah, it's tough. It's tough because Flannel Shirt Guy could be in on a whole bunch of other criminal activity not related to this particular crime, and that could account for some of the behavior. Paul Etter, a 55-year-old local man of many interests, one of his many interesting hobbies was abducting and raping young women. But alas, he raped one last too many. Man, that's a weird way to try to make... And the law closed in on him, holed up in his home, which now resembled Dodge City. He saved society a lot of money by eating a bullet, freeing up some fresh air, and making the world the tiniest bit of a better place. He raped women, not young teenage girls. He was in the right age, but he doesn't look like Bridge Guy. Law enforcement has already looked into him quite a bit, and I assume he's cleared. And one last thing, he's dead, Jim. Move along. Now, just because he's dead doesn't mean he didn't do the crime. That's kind of a weird way to look at that. CM not even going to bother to reveal his name. Local professor at Purdue, known for the geocaching theory. Some connection with Libby via geocaching. I was never aware that anyone had anything against this harmless-looking fella. Lawyered up, not talking. He's afraid he's going to be framed with these murders. A not unreasonable fear. Yes, not unreasonable at all. However, how many harmless-looking fellas end up being murderers? Again, I'm not saying this particular individual, known as CM here, local professor at Purdue, I'm not saying he's guilty in any way, but the fact that he's harmless-looking or mild-mannered, obviously that is not how you determine whether someone is a murderer or not. And I'll be getting into the geocaching theory in the next episode or two, because there's a lot there, not even involving this local professor. And some people believe that could be the key to solving this. Supposedly, Kelsey was also into geocaching, and her and Libby might have been geocaching in the approximate area as little as 1 week before the murders occurred. So there's more there to explore. Okay, the next suspect, CN, middle-aged man, resident of Delphi. Well, he's the right age anyway. Never knew what the case was against this man other than he had property near the bridge, and he and his wife's alibi of being out of town and state traveling got a bit mangled. We all stumble over our words sometimes. He's a local executive of a government function, or perhaps better yet, a non-profit of some sort, possibly works with kids. I've looked this man over and I can't think of anyone less likely to commit this crime. His wife has taken to social media lately, pleading with people to stop harassing them and insisting he had nothing to do with this crime. Good advice. How about taking it to heat, everyone? And just another point, not about this individual, but about in general, when people stumble over alibis, that doesn't mean they're guilty of a particular crime they're accused of. That means they might have been doing something they don't want people to find out about. Affairs, drug dealing, other illicit activities, or maybe something not even illegal, but something they're embarrassed about. They just don't want people to know, and since they figure they're clearly innocent of this crime and there will never be any physical evidence linked to them, they're just willing to stumble and lie a little bit to protect whatever embarrassing issue they have, because they know there's no chance they'd ever be found guilty of this crime, because they know they didn't do it, and physical evidence could never prove it, so they don't feel the need to be 100% honest about their alibi. Just a quick aside there. All right, Garrett Kurtz, and I will be referring back to Kurtz, local man, all around run-of-the-mill bad person. He killed a woman. I'm not sure why. I doubt it was for a good reason. So he's a murderer of young women at that, but not of young teenage girls. He's in prison where he belongs. I never knew what evidence anyone had against this guy except he kills chicks, so that means he killed these girls because they're chicks too. Doesn't sound like a logical progression of thought to me. Empiricism is a thing, folks. Besides, he's the wrong age, 27 and 28. Bridge guy is a 50-year-old man. Repeat after me. Bridge guy is a 50-year-old man. Repeat it as often as necessary to get it through your head. Give it a rest, everyone. Okay, so if bridge guy is not a 50-year-old man, then repeating it ad nauseum would just be falling for this ad nauseum logical fallacy. So, again, Robert Lindsay, even though he has interesting analyses at points, he does seem to be very unhinged and illogical in other respects. Here he goes next. He just goes ranting about people disputing his theories or whatever. The case is over. There's no need to speculate about many relevant facts about Bridge Guy or about what happened during this crime. For the moment at least, law enforcement definitely has a prime suspect who they think committed this crime, and they now suspect is committing other murders. There is only one correct POI, and his name is Mr. X. Why not follow what law enforcement has determined? All of your other POIs and endless silly speculation are junk. Really, none of it is true. There's no need to speculate anymore. We know that law enforcement has a suspect, so there's only one person people should be suspecting. But by his own logic, he's pointed out that law enforcement was wrong and can be wrong and theories change. So again, the inconsistency here. I mean, Robert Lindsay, there's definitely some mental issues with this man and his consistency. We also know a number of proven facts about what happened in this crime, including the behavior of Mr. X in relation to the crime and why law enforcement suspects him. The motive is apparently lust murder motivated by sexual sadism combined with psychopathy, the classic formulation almost all serial killers have. The motive was sexual. This was a sex crime, a sex homicide. We now know a lot of things about the main suspect, including the name, age, height, weight, marital status, possible offspring, address, names of wife and children, and history of his life. These are the facts about the man law enforcement suspects is Bridge Guy. Items known to be carried or worn by Bridge Guy at the time of the crime: loaded handgun in right jacket pocket, type unknown, members only jacket, blue, old style 501 blue jeans from the 1980s, dad jeans, Indiana Packers boots, camouflage hunting cap on head, GoPro camera on waist, deer kit on waist with 5 hunting knives in it, white scarf around his face covering the lower half of his face, bottle of toilet bowl cleaner in left pocket, binoculars. Known facts about the personal life of the main suspect, Mr. X: birthplace Illinois, resident history unknown for first 18 years, possibly Illinois, Delphi, Indiana, and several other small towns in Indiana from at least 1984 to 2021, resident in Delphi in 1984 to 1985 at minimum. Important residence periods: moved to Evansdale, Iowa in 2011 to 2012 to work at a slaughterhouse aligned with Tyson Foods there. Was present when the Evansdale murders occurred. Homeless for a period in the 2000s where he resided at a homeless shelter. Education history: primary and junior high unknown. Senior high school first years unknown, but graduated from Delphi High School in 1984 to 1985. Age at the time of the crime 49 to 50, uncertain. Present age 53 to 54, uncertain. Race white, hair color dark brown. Facial hair goatee or trimmed beard. Height approximately 5'8". Weight approximately 180. Sexual age orientation: pedohebophilia, non-exclusive, AOA 8 to 14. As place of residence. Employment history unknown prior to 2011. Worked at Tyson Foods, slaughterhouse in Logansport, Indiana, and sister facility in Waterloo, Iowa in 2011 and 2012. Afterwards, possible owner operator of trucking business. Occupation, possible owner, operator of long-haul trucking business in recent past. Present occupation unknown, but recently raised goats on his property. Distance of residence from the crime scene, less than 2 miles. Familiarity with crime location, extreme. He was friends with Ron Logan, on whose property the crime occurred. Frequently hunted deer on Ron's land. He was clearly very familiar with the area of the crime and perhaps knew it as well as the back of his hand. Marital status, married, rocky and tumultuous marriage with breakups, where they go live on their own and later get back together. Children, 2 daughters, 2 adult daughters. Relationship with younger daughter, excellent, very close. She is very fond of him. Relationship with older daughter, unknown. Important friendships, very casual friend of Mike Patty, father of one of the girl's victims. Possible Harley buddies, friends who ride Harley-Davidson motorcycles, as Mike is an avid Harley rider. There is a rumor of a falling out between the 2 men at some time before the crime. What that has to do with anything is not known. Hunting partner of Anthony Greeno, podcaster who has reported on the case avidly. So Robert Lindsay is saying that Mr. X is the hunting partner of Anthony Greeno, friends with Ron Logan, and a casual friend, I guess more of an acquaintance type, of Mike Patty. Hobbies, raising goats, riding and fixing up Harley-Davidson motorcycles, very avid deer hunter. Specific information about the crime scene confirmed to us by the police. Okay, and this is from a post on a memorial, doll thrown in with flowers at the memorial at the bridge. This is about a year after the crime, and you can see some of the flowers deteriorating. As you can see, a doll has been thrown into the mix. I don't know what that means, but perhaps it's odd. Did Bridge Guy put that doll there? He scattered dolls all over the crime scene. We know that much. And this weirdness with the dolls, I mean, these are all rumors, of course, but again, if you haven't checked out the JonBenet Ramsey podcast series on MINDSHOCK, check that out. I haven't gotten to the doll situation, but apparently there was a lot of mysterious incidents with dolls in regarding to the JonBenet Ramsey case and one particular POI, possible suspect in that case. Again, if Bridge Guy is the killer, but is the true perpetrator of this crime, are they just simply playing games? Do the games have specific references to things, or are they just muddying the waters, so to speak? Okay, that said, the following very controversial information about the Delphi murders was given to us directly by the police. Numbers 1 to 4 were told to us by an Indiana detective, but we don't want to say where he's located. He didn't work on the case, but he has a particular interest in crimes against minors, especially violent crimes against minors. Number 5 was told to us by an Indiana detective who worked in narcotics based on crime scene photos he had seen. We also heard it from someone very close to a detective who was working on the case who had confided in them. Number 6, an extremely controversial statement was told to us by a sheriff in a nearby county. 1, both girls were posed. Keep in mind they did not say how they were posed, if they were posed in a sexual manner, etc. 2, dolls were scattered about the crime scene. There were quite a few of them. Our police source told us, quote, there were so many dolls scattered around that it looked like he had gone to the Goodwill store and bought a bunch of dolls, end quote. This also answers questions about why the cops have been using phrases like odd, peculiar, strange, not your average crime scene, many signatures, etc. It fits right in with all of that. 3, a bottle of toilet cleaner was found at the crime scene. Presumably it was used to throw bleach over everything, which solves the riddle of why no usable DNA was collected in this case. 4, the girls were violated with inanimate objects. 5, sticks, twigs, and branches were jammed into the girls. Presumably, this is what the violated with inanimate object statement above refers to. The source is a narcotics detective in Indiana and a close associate of a detective working on the case. And again, is there verification of this person's identity, or did they just claim to be this person. Okay, 6. One girl was pregnant, just barely pregnant. This is one very old rumor that started up within a few weeks of the murder. The first person who told me that was a middle-aged woman who lived in the area. Just saying that for anyone who accuses me of making this up. This rumor just would not die. It kept popping up over and over, so I had to keep reporting it. We were never sure if it was true or not, so it was always just another unverified rumor. I didn't want to bring this rumor up because I've caught so much crap for it, but I felt I had to because an Indiana law enforcement officer affirmed to us that this rumor was true. But how would the law enforcement officer know if it was true, or it was true that it was said? If police had not verified this rumor for us, I wouldn't be... Are they verifying that it's a rumor? Or how would they verify that if it was true? So it was indeed a rumor and someone did indeed report this to the police. Is that what Robert Lindsay is alleging? Because how would they know if it was really true or not? I wouldn't be bothering with it because it's brought me nothing but trouble, but when we get information straight from the police, we feel we must report it. This is not a rumor I relish reporting, trust me. His exact quote was, quote, "One of the girls was in the early stages of pregnancy," end quote. He did not state which girl it was, and we are not sure ourselves. Or is this information from the coroner's report? We have an idea which girl it might be, but until we can get a good source on that, we are not going to upset people even more by naming the girl. We think that if this rumor is true, one of the girls was 6 to 8 weeks pregnant, when pregnancy is hard to diagnose but can be confirmed on autopsy. Specifically, there will be a thickening of the walls of the uterus that can be determined at this time. All guardians of the girls seem to think this would be impossible based on these girls having almost no experience with males. Well, they need to disabuse themselves of that notion. Our information is that at least one girl was sexually active, and one of the girls was 13 to 14, going on 20 if you get the picture. That's a bizarre way to describe that. Okay, let's say she was growing up awful fast. We will not say which girl or girls is being discussed above. People are furious with us over this rumor because they say we are sullying these girls' reputations, therefore disqualifying them for posthumous sainthood. We do not feel that inexperienced 13 to 14-year-old girls have some sort of purity that can be dirtied, nor do we feel that a girl this age sullies her reputation by engaging in PIV sex. People who think like this are prudes and Puritans. We do not feel that it is immoral for 13 to 14-year-old girls to have PIV sex or to get pregnant. It's stupid for them to get pregnant, but it's not immoral. Approximately 15% of girls that age and probably more are already having PIV sex. The source, a sheriff's officer in a nearby county. Now, is Robert Lindsay, when he's saying we, is he speaking for all 200 people that are supposedly part of his sleuthing group? Because that's just really bizarre. Again, this guy seems to be quite mental in a lot of... he's pretty mental. Specific information about the crime confirmed to us via official case documents in our possession. For more information on these documents, see the special section below where their nature and provenance is explained. Although we only have photocopies of these documents, we believe they are genuine. The document list is a number of items that law enforcement is looking for in this case. A pair of binoculars. This lines up nicely with Lee Kerr's testimony where he said that Bridge Guy used binoculars in this crime. Photos, videos, cameras, video cameras, and film. In other words, law enforcement are convinced that Bridge Guy filmed or videotaped his crime. The only way they could know this is if the rumors about Bridge Guy sending photos or video of the crime to one of the girls' phones after the crime occurred are true. So the rumor that he filmed the crime and sent the film to a victim's phone is proven. This proves more of Lee Kerr's testimony where he said Bridge Guy sent photos or video to one of the girls' phones after the crime. Wow, that's really bizarre. So again, I don't know how Lindsay has verified this information. He's saying it's true. Again, is that because he took the word of someone else claiming to be an official source who's not an official source and they made it up? Or it's just another uncorroborated rumor through the grapevine? However, does it make sense from the statements from law enforcement that they have video or audio of the entirety of the crime and it wasn't from one of the girls recording it? It was from either whatever. Everybody's using the word Bridge Guy. I'm going to use perpetrator because if it's not Bridge Guy, but it could be Bridge Guy. Again, We really don't know if there were multiple people involved. Either way, if the perpetrator had filmed the crime and then sent the video, I mean, that's really insane on so many levels. I mean, this is truly a very unusual crime in no matter, I mean, however you look at it. 43 seconds of audio. It is interesting that they are looking for precisely 43 seconds of audio. Law enforcement must know that Bridge Guy recorded 43 seconds of audio, presumably of his crime. But how could they know this? Only if he had sent this much audio to one of the girls' phones after the crime. Huh. Weird. So is it possible that Libby did not film or record this, and this is all coming from Bridge Guy? And he sent it to her phone to taunt law enforcement? A handgun in order to do ballistic tests on it. This means that they have at least one fired cartridge. Bridge Guy must have fired his gun at some point in this crime. The rumor that there was a spent cartridge at the scene is therefore confirmed. And again, this is Robert Lindsay's language. Confirm this, confirm that. I don't know how he can consider any of this confirmed, but again, this is his blog, beyondhighbrow.com. Knives, he is wearing a deer kit which contains 5 different types of knives. Clothing soaked in blood, seen and unseen. This blood will probably not come out with the wash. The documents state that the wound to Libby was so brutal that the blood spatter would have been dramatic, drenching the killer's clothes in blood. And again, this is why some people believe that the perpetrator and or perpetrators did not walk back out through the trails because it would have been too obvious. Specific mention is made that the girls were abducted at exactly 2:13 p.m. The crime occurred on February 13th, or as you can see, the numbers are the same. People are saying this is a coincidence, but apparently law enforcement does not believe it was coincidental. Okay. I'm not going over the aspects of the crime scene not verified. He goes into some really weird stuff with the crime scene. Rumors that are now confirmed via Indiana law enforcement. Again, this is Robert Lindsay claiming this. I have not seen any official proof that Indiana law enforcement has confirmed anything at all that Robert Lindsay has been saying here. Law enforcement believes Mr. X is Bridge Guy. Via our detective source in Indiana, law enforcement has a main suspect in the Delphi murders, Mr. X, and the case is focused on him. All other POIs are pretty much dropped or cleared. However, it is still not clear that Mr. X did this on his own, or if someone helped him. Law enforcement would also be interested in anyone who may have helped Mr. X after the crime, perhaps burning evidence or whatever. It is important to note that you are under no obligation to tell the police anything. I could know that some guy was a serial killer with 10 victims, and I don't have to go to the police. He could have even confessed to me, but I am still not under obligation to tell the cops. The one thing I cannot do is help him get away with his crimes, that is, be an accessory. I'm not 100% sure on the legality of that either. Anyway, law enforcement believes that Bridge Guy is Mr. X. They're not looking at anyone else. They think he did it, end of story. And Robert Lindsay is also making conflicting claims because he's also claimed that law enforcement might not be aware of Mr. X. Law enforcement believes that Bridge Guy Mr. X is a serial killer and was also responsible for the Evansdale murders. Via our detective source, we learned that law enforcement has only recently started to believe that Mr. X is also responsible for the Evansdale murders. We believe he is currently the main suspect in the Evansdale murders. Much more on that below. And I'll be doing a dedicated episode on the Evansdale murders. This has been requested multiple times. A lot of people believe there's some kind of connection as well. July 13th, 2012, 2 cousins disappeared from the small town of Evansdale, Iowa. 6 months later, their bodies were discovered in a wooded area 20 miles away, but their killer has eluded police in the years since. Law enforcement believes there are similarities between Evansdale and Delphi double homicides. Via our detective source in Indiana, we have learned that in both crimes, one, there was posing. So yes, even though the Evansdale girls were mere skeletons when found, law enforcement continues to believe that they were posed. 2 girls in the pedohemophilic age range, 8 to 14, were brazenly abducted 2 at once from trails in busy parks in rural Midwestern towns in the middle of daytime with many people around. 3, the bodies were dumped near water. 4, a number of strange objects were found around the Evansdale girls, similar to the bizarre images decorating the Delphi crime scene. Some other points here. Law enforcement says Bridge Guy used a bleaching agent, specifically toilet cleaner, and threw it over everything at the crime scene. In addition, this detective in Indiana told us that a bleaching agent was used at the scene. The detective felt it is not bleach per se, but toilet bowl cleaner. They said he sprayed it all over everything important at the scene. You can see what appears to be a bottle of toilet bowl cleaner in Bridge Guy's left pocket in a blow-up image. We believe that this is a bottle of toilet bowl cleaner, and some of us have believed this for a long time, particularly a physician who is a member of our team. Okay, unconfirmed rumors not validated by the police. However, other objections say we are claiming a lot of things about the crime scene. Actually, these below are mostly unverified rumors with some probability of being true. The police did not verify any of the rumors below for us. 1, dolls hanging from trees at the crime scene. Source, a female member of the search team. 2, a sheet with a smiley face on it at the crime scene, possibly hung from a tree. Source, a female member of the search team. 3, a large stuffed bear or animal at the crime scene. Source, a female member of the search team. Also, many people say that you can see one clearly on blow-ups of crime scene photos. Okay, I won't go over some of the other more gruesome ones. The presence of a giant stuffed bear, female member of a search party. Presence of a crucifix, source, female member of the search party. To be fair, they never said that any of these things were not at the crime scene or that these events did not happen. Instead, they simply didn't mention them because we never asked about them. So law enforcement didn't say that these rumors were true, but they did not say that they were not true either. Okay. The DNA and fingerprint questions. As we noted, law enforcement already has a principal suspect in the crime, and his DNA is found in the forest all around the crime scene. However, he was one of the searchers who found the bodies, and he was also known to have searched the area in the dark the previous evening. So wait a second. This guy searched his suspect, searched the area the previous evening, and the bodies were not there? I don't know how clear that is. Conceivably, he could have missed the girls while searching the night before, in which case his DNA would be in the area. His DNA in the forest could also be a result of his being part of the search team that found the girls. Hence, none of his DNA from the forest around the girls is usable. We keep hearing over and over DNA, DNA, DNA. We think this is a whole lot about nothing. As noted above, Bridge Guy threw toilet cleaner over the girls and every object at the crime scene. Well, there goes your DNA. The only DNA found on the girls was that of Kelsey, sister of Libby. Kelsey has been cleared. There is a rumor that law enforcement has a partial DNA sample from an unknown male from one of the girls. Problem is, they only have 9 markers on the partial. That's not very many. Conceivably, perhaps 10% of men might have those 9 markers. These partial DNA samples are useful to law enforcement. For instance, if law enforcement have a suspect and they have a partial present in 10% of the population, this is one more bit of evidence that might point them to having the absolute right guy. On the other hand, a sample with only 9 markers is absolutely not usable in court. In other words, the whole DNA question seems to be a gigantic red herring. If the rumors are true, law enforcement are being coy about whether or not they have DNA, but that's probably just another ruse. They don't want to show their hand to the killer and let him know if they have DNA or not. I think people need to stop talking about DNA in this case. It's a dead end. Another interesting point there, even with these 9 markers, people get hung up on the definitiveness of DNA. Because if the sample doesn't have that much integrity, you have to extrapolate information from it. So if it's degraded, what is the percent likelihood that those 9 markers are exact? Because if it's a degraded or partial sample in the first place, it possibly could be somebody. Those 9 markers, there might be a mistake in some of those 9 markers, in which case it could also be somebody else, regardless of whether or not they possess the markers or not. So, again, that's why relying solely on DNA evidence is an issue, especially when we see every generation there's all these people being released from prison because previous DNA matches were actually not accurate once better DNA testing comes into play. It was a mistake. About those fingerprints, law enforcement themselves have admitted that they have 1 smudged fingerprint. They didn't say where they collected it from, but that's an important question. Also, smudged prints are very, very dubious value. They're generally unusable. I wish people would stop talking about fingerprints. The lady walking her dogs at the bridge at 12:30 p.m. on the day of the murders. This is a rumor that a woman walking her dogs on the bridge at 12:30 on the day of the murders, a full hour before Bridge Guy probably appeared on the trails at 1:30, met Bridge Guy somewhere, possibly on the south side of the bridge, and even had a brief conversation with Bridge Guy. However, this information does not seem to be coming from law enforcement. Instead, it is coming from Delphi podcaster Anthony Greeno, a dubious man and apparent con artist with a rap sheet so long it fades into the horizon when you try to read it. That doesn't mean he's wrong. It means to consider information coming from him with a lot of caution. This woman was apparently a discovery of Greeno's. Okay, wait. Greeno finds this woman, but law enforcement never did? She approached Greeno, but she didn't approach law enforcement. My smellometer is registering stinky. Furthermore, the woman has since gone into hiding, possibly because of people bothering her, or maybe because she is afraid of Bridge Guy is going to kill her. Anyway, she's not talking. Before she departed us, though, she did inform us that she could not identify what the man she met looked like. Except she was sure he was Bridge Guy. Now, wait a minute. I'm kind of thinking this eyewitness account ain't making it to the witness stand, you know? Obviously, this is very much an unconfirmed rumor, though everyone is treating it as if it's the word of God. I beg to differ. If anyone has any more information on this odd rumor, please let me know in the comments or in my email. Obviously, if we can place Bridge Guy at the bridge at 12:30, that changes everything. Okay, next point he's got here. Quit referencing law enforcement statements at the 2019 press conference, the fake friends, as factual. Fake afferents? That doesn't roll very well. Although we do not have any evidence that this is true, we believe that the 2019 press conference was a gigantic ruse. We believe that they already had a main suspect at the time, and they thought he was going to be at the meeting. So the meeting was designed to trick him. The entire meeting was meant for the consumption of one person, Mr. X. Notice that law enforcement told the public to stop focusing on the old Bridge Guy and to focus on the new Bridge Guy. Instead, the new Bridge Guy was said to be the man who carried out the murders. He was Bridge Guy. They also said that Bridge Guy was 18 to 40 years old. Anyone with any sense can see intuitively that Bridge Guy cannot possibly be the young man in the sketch, nor can he be 18 to 40. Bridge Guy is obviously a middle-aged man around 50. You can tell by many things: gait, body shape, manner of walking, voice, etc. Law enforcement actually believes Bridge Guy is 49 to 50 years old. If law enforcement actually believes that Bridge Guy is 50 years old, why did they put out this statement that he looks like this ridiculous sketch of a very young man, or even an 18 to 40-year-old man? Why would they deliberately contradict their own beliefs? Easy. They were lying. Another interesting point, though, I believe I've mentioned this before. If there were multiple individuals involved, would they hire someone, so to speak, to create a false sketch, or they have a false witness to get a sketch that looks nothing like him to, again, divert attention from the real perpetrator or perpetrators? Law enforcement also brought up an unknown vehicle, possibly a white truck, seen at the CPS building. The message here to Mr. X is clear. Law enforcement has gone off on a completely different tangent and is not looking at you at all anymore. Instead, these idiot cops think that some kid in a white truck did it. What a bunch of idiots. Not the first sketch, which looks like a middle-aged man. Mr. X, some kid. Not Bridge Guy, nope, nope, nope. How can anyone on earth believe this is Bridge Guy? Because the cops told you so. LOL. Quit listening to the police. They tell all sorts of lies as dirty strategy in extremely important homicides like this. And that's another thing I guess the coincidence theorists and the authority-worshipping cultists don't understand. Law enforcement do operate in an ends justifies the means capacity a lot of the time. Again, I'm not going to ascribe percentages, different cops, different methodologies, different police departments. But to think that they wouldn't lie to catch a murderer, I mean, they're trying to catch a murderer here. You know? Okay, not the orange truck of the main suspect, of course not. Instead, a probably non-existent white truck at the CPS building. So Robert Lindsay's stating that there's an orange truck that the main suspect drives. You've thrown the cops off your tail, Mr. X. Good job. And at the end, Carter says he may even be in this room right now, and then looks in the complete opposite direction of Mr. X. The cops are wrong again. They think some fool on the other side of the room did it. Idiots. The truth is that some of the things law enforcement said in that conference are true. The sketch of the younger man appears to have been the catfish of the 19-year-old boy used to lure in Libby from Snapchat. And Mr. X or Bridge Guy is the one who used that catfish to bring Libby in. So when law enforcement said the younger sketch is the one who committed this crime, they were correct. He did commit the crime because the younger sketch is just Bridge Guy in catfish form, his other younger personality that he uses to snare victims. And when they said Bridge Guy was actually better described as a combination of both sketches, they were correct too. Bridge Guy himself is both the catfish young man and the older man who is the actual killer, so he is both sketches at once, obviously. Also note that law enforcement are now acting like they think the young catfish did the crime, not the older Bridge Guy. This was done to get Mr. X to think, LOL, they don't think I did it. They think the stupid catfish boy did it. Haha. Let them go on a wild goose chase after someone who doesn't exist. Once again, this was done to get Mr. X to think that they had lost his tail and were running off in the wrong direction against a completely different suspect. Granted, we don't have any evidence that this is true other than Lee Kerr's statements. We regard leaking information, Lee Kerr, and also Lee Kerr, Leighkerr. We regard Lee Kerr as credible, but we now demand sources beyond his level to be considered probative. Hence, formally, everything Lee Kerr has said has gone into unconfirmed rumors rather than things we're able to confirm from other sources, such as law enforcement statements to us, official case documents, two sources arriving at the same conclusion independently, a near impossibility if they were both making up the same lie. Nevertheless, we do feel that Lee Kerr's notion that this was all a big ruse rang true for us and sent us off on our investigation with the help of the notorious Godsey, I might add. We currently feel that this is the best explanation of the facts. Can we prove it? Nope. But all theories must be judged against their competitors, OCOMs. But the competing theory to the logic... Put the competing theory to the logic test. Is there any way on earth that Bridge Guy could look like the young man in the sketch or even an 18 to 40-year-old? Get real. When we line the two theories against each other, ours wins hands down. Hence, following OCOMs, our theory is the best explanation of the facts. Wow. Okay, another misapplication of Occam's razor. If you haven't checked out the MINDSHOCK podcast regarding Occam's razor, I've gone over that endless times. You'd have to have two theories that adequately explain something happening before you determine that the simpler one is more likely to be true, which is, again, not necessarily the truth. Whatever is true, even if it's the more complicated one. But if there's more than one perpetrator, it easily makes sense that there's two sketches. If there's two guys, or if Bridge Guy's wearing some kind of disguise. So if it's a young guy that somehow had some kind of a disguise. The other thing someone brought up, I think it was in the YouTube comment section on one of the previous MINDSHOCK episodes on Delphi, those old man masks that were quite popular a couple years back. Some relatively realistic masks of geriatric individuals. And then if you put other stuff on to modify the disguise, you could have a decent looking disguise, at least something from a distance. And if they're intentionally trying to frame Ron Logan, they could wear clothes similar to Ron Logan's. And, I mean, who knows? Again, there's lots of different explanations here. This is MINDSHOCK, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. Mr. X's employment at a packing plant in Indiana and possible connection to the Evansdale murders verified by article in the Indiana Star. Via the Indiana Star in an undated article that we cannot find at the moment, but nevertheless believe exists. Robert Lindsay strikes again. Mr. X's roommate in 2011 to 2012 in Delphi told law enforcement that Bridge Guy was absolutely Mr. X. The voice was a good match, the clothes looked familiar, and the walk was dead on. The roommate also said he suspected Mr. X of the Evansdale murders because during the time of the Evansdale murders, Mr. X and the roommate were both over in Evansdale being put up in hotels for months while they worked on the packing plant there. Interesting if true. Many people from the Delphi area went over to Evansdale to work on this project. Oh, that's interesting. If that's true, that means that means you'd have a relatively big circle of individuals that worked at these packing plants that do have the connection to Evansdale. So wow, that is interesting. They appear to have been working at the Tyson plant in Logansport, Indiana, where they were shipped to the sister Tyson plant in Waterloo, Iowa. If this roommate is correct, it looks like Mr. X worked in 2011 and 2012 at Tyson Foods in Logansport, and he was moved to near Evansdale, Iowa for a period during these 2 years to work on a sister plant in Waterloo near Evansdale. We don't know what his job was there, but if it was slitting the throats of screaming, squealing pigs on ropes swinging towards him with a knife so huge that it looked like a sword, as is done at some slaughterhouses, we would say a job like that would be right up Bridge Guy's alley. Bridge Guy made a deep cut to the throat of one victim that resembles the deep cuts made to the throats of pigs at some slaughterhouses. Notice that Bridge Guy committed his crime with large knives, his preferred weapon. Mr. X also cuts up a lot of deer that he shoots for food. So it looks like Mr. X is used to cutting up dead and possibly living animals with large knives, and humans are animals too. Another weird statement there from Robert Lindsay. The weird behavior of Mr. X surrounding his truck at the crime scene. We now have a better time frame for Mr. X's truck being parked at the cemetery. Note that it was parked in head first. We believe he staged the crime with these elaborate props either before or after the crime from this exact location. We don't know why he asked permission to search Ron Logan's land at 6:30 p.m., but this is also a huge red flag because he asked to search that land a full half hour before the fire department had even announced the formation of a search team. Okay, wow. This is really mind-shocking because if this is true, even if it's not true about this particular suspect, we have another possibility. This sparked another possibility that I haven't considered before. Is it possible that really was the crime scene? The girls were killed there, and then they were moved from there for the first search and then brought back. So they weren't necessarily taken elsewhere, killed, and then dumped. They maybe were killed there. Or maybe not. Maybe there were just items left there that he wanted to clear. So then he would go on Ron Logan's land, he would get rid of possible clothes or any kind of marks that could be tied to a crime, took them away, and then brought them back the next day. That's, of course, but even if this rumor is not true, I don't know how this was corroborated. This guy's asking to search Ron Logan's land. And even if he's innocent, then okay, it's just a concerned citizen. But, and if he knows Mike Patty, he might be searching before the fire department announces the formation of a search team. Again, this is if he's innocent. If this Mr. X character is innocent, which he very well might be. Not only that, but Mr. X's alibi is that he was in another town from 2:15 to 3:15 p.m. on the day of the crime. That would mean he would have to drive back to Delphi by at least 35, possibly later, depending on what town he was in and when he left. The problem here is that before 5:30, no one knew the girls were missing other than the families and a few friends. He could have called his wife, who was friends with Becky Patty, and the wife could have told him about the girls going missing. But that would mean that Becky Patty would have to say that she called the wife. We doubt if she did contact his wife, they weren't that close. After 5:30 p.m., news of the girls going missing went out over the police scanner. We suppose if he was listening to a police scanner, he could have known that early, but what's the likelihood of Mr. X listening to a police scanner between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. on the day of the crime? We would say it is low. He parked 1,000 feet away from Ron's door, almost a quarter mile away. Why didn't he pull up to his front door? We don't know about you all, but when we go visit our friends, we generally don't park a quarter mile away and hike in. We park right at the front door. We also don't know what he was doing searching down there that night. We also do not know why, out of all the places to search, he happened to pick the exact location where the girls were killed. However, this early searching meant that he could use his lost my keys excuse as a reason why his car just happened to be parked for 18 hours 18 straight hours soon after the crime and right above where the girls were found, because he could say the next day that he lost them during the previous evening's search. It is interesting that Mr. X appears to have stayed with his truck from 6:30 p.m. to Monday, February 13th, 12:30 p.m., Tuesday, February 14th, when the girls were found. That's a full 18 hours. Why on earth would someone stay next to their truck all through one evening and night through the next early a.m. and morning into the afternoon? It doesn't seem like a normal person would stay at that location for all that time. Here's the thing, though. If this guy really did kill them, I mean, he's going to come up with the excuse, I lost my keys, to explain his vehicle being at the right next to the crime scene. That doesn't make a lot of sense either. I mean, because this guy can't be that dumb, right? We believe he could have been staging the elaborate crime scene during that time. Where his truck was parked was a 5-minute walk to the crime scene. If he had those objects found at the crime scene in his truck, he could have easily carried them down to the crime scene and used them to stage it with the objects. Mr. X needed the lost his keys excuse to explain how he stayed in that spot for 18 hours. If he didn't have his keys, he could not move his truck. He could have gone home, but for some reason he stayed with his truck. Did he eat? Where did he get the food, and what was the food? Did he sleep? If so, where and when? Urinating is no problem, but what if he had to defecate? It's an interesting way to put it. Robert Lindsay's definitely thinking about these things. That would have been quite a problem. It doesn't seem reasonable to stay out there all that time for no good reason. But it's even worse than that. Even after the girls were recovered, Mr. X stayed around through all of the media and police hubbub for the next 8 hours, from 12:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So his truck was out at the crime scene for 26 full hours, with Mr. X presumably with it the entire time. Why on earth would anyone hang around near their vehicle for a full day just because they lost their keys? Were they waiting for God himself to bring the keys? We believe Mr. X stayed with the truck all that time in order to watch it. If he left, law enforcement might tow it or search it. He stayed to guard his truck. We believe he did this because there may have been incriminating evidence in there. Another reason he stayed is we believe that he enjoyed the drama. Everyone was crowding around to look at the crime he had committed. He was right in the middle of all the police and media, and no one suspected him. I'm sure that was a LOL feeling for him. These idiot cops, they're swarming all over this crime scene, and the killer is standing right there under their noses in the midst of the chaos for hours, and these cop-tards can't figure this out. We think he likes to fool and troll law enforcement. I'm fooling the cops, haha, is the thinking. Why did Mr. X not drive his truck away when it was in the way of all of the police cars? He had his keys with him, so why didn't he move his truck when they asked him to instead of lying and saying he couldn't? Because he had lost his keys. Law enforcement asked him to move the vehicle. He said he had lost his keys and was going to call his wife to bring a spare set of keys to him. 3 problems with that story. 1, he never lost his keys. 2, he never called the wife to ask her to bring a spare set. 3, there was no spare set in the first place. Nobody has a spare set of keys? That's interesting. At 8:20 p.m., the police scanner said that Mr. X's wife was coming to bring Mr. X a spare set of keys. This has been misrepresented by doubters as the scanner saying to let Mrs. X into the sealed off area because she's bringing Mr. X his keys. We believe he just told law enforcement she was coming. It went out over the scanner and she never showed up. Law enforcement must have been getting exasperated with Mr. X by this time. Someone, probably law enforcement, called to have Mr. X's truck towed. Mr. X just stood there and let them tow his truck away. He probably went back to retrieve it later on with his spare set actually the real set he never lost and drove it back home. Unfortunately, Mr. X's truck was never searched. We believe there may have been incriminating evidence in there. After all of this, a fake cover story was put out that Mr. X never lost his keys in the first place. Actually, that is correct, because they were sitting in his pocket the whole time. But our critics think this means the story about him losing his keys is fake. Mr. X's younger daughter insists that he never lost his keys. His wife now echoes in. As far as she is concerned, he never lost his keys. Becky Patty is also saying he never lost his keys. However, Becky is saying two different things. First, that he lost his keys, and later that he didn't lose his keys. We have a screenshot of Becky Patty texting Mrs. X to ask why she said he never lost his keys when he did. So another story is going out that he did lose his keys. See what is going on here? Multiple stories are floating around, probably not purposely. Some are contradictory, but the effect is to cause confusion. The more confused people are, the more someone can get away with a crime. I mean, and he could have also said he lost his keys even if he didn't. And who did he say that to? So those individuals would be reporting whatever they were told, because how would they know if he really lost his keys if he just said he did? As far as validation of the rumors of Mr. X being parked at the cemetery at 6:30 p.m., asking Ron Logan for permission to search his land, and searching his land that evening with two other men, and leaving his truck sitting there for 18 hours until the next day when the bodies were found, and another 8 hours afterwards, we can't. This is simply what we have been told, and we are sticking by it. We have also been told that law enforcement caught Mr. X in the lies about losing his keys, calling his wife to bring him a spare, and a spare even existing in the first place. Law enforcement doesn't like being lied to, especially when they are investigating a double homicide. We have been told that this is what made law enforcement suspicious of Mr. X in the first place. We are even being challenged on our reporting that Mr. X's truck was boxed in by police at the time of the discovery of the bodies. But we have a photograph of his truck surrounded by police cars. The story about his truck getting towed is also being challenged. We were told that his truck had been towed. The rejoinders also say that either he never lost his keys or he did and he called the wife to bring a spare and she did, evidence being the police scanner. But the scanner doesn't say she came to bring the keys. It said she was coming to deliver the keys. We believe she never showed up. He never called the wife, never lost his keys in the first place, and there was no spare set. We believe this because this is what we were told. So I'm guessing Mr. X lied and said he told his wife and his wife was coming to get the keys and that's what law enforcement were told. Or he really did tell her to come with the keys, but she never did for other reasons. Mr. X's traumatic reaction upon discovering the bodies appears staged and fake. Mr. X not only discovered the bodies, but he ran away in terror afterwards, like a coward, we would add. Then he needed 2 to 3 months of therapy to work through this traumatic experience. We believe that those reactions were overblown. No one else reacted that way, not even Becky Patty, and she was probably more devastated than anyone and probably still is. So Mr. X was more traumatized by this crime than anyone else, including the victim's grandmother, who was hurt more than anyone. We believe that the running away and months of therapy were also staged. In other words, they were faked to make it look like he could not have possibly committed the crime because he was more devastated than anyone else. And my thoughts there are just, there's a lot of weird mental people. So if he's innocent and he's just completely mental, maybe he was involved in other crimes, maybe he was there to something to do with that meth operation. And I will say who this individual is in general. I'm not sure his name has been officially released by law enforcement. But I'll be getting more into who Mr. X is after I complete the summary here. But if he's involved in other crimes and that's why he was there and then he just kind of stuck around because he was curious and or mentally disturbed and or psychotic, whatever. If he's completely insane, he might have had that reaction and been innocent, right? Again, we don't know. We don't have a copy of the gag order supposedly issued about the towing of a truck from the CPS building on either February 13th and 14th. People are saying that we have a copy of the gag order that was issued on the towing of the truck at the CPS building. We believe that this happened in the first place because a photo exists of a truck being towed from the CPS building around February 13th to 14th. We do not have a copy of that gag order, but we were told that one had been issued by the courts. We have no idea why the order was issued. Nature of case document in my possession. We do indeed have a document from the case. A man was a suspect in this crime, and the documents are from law enforcement's investigation of him. The docs are his property. He ran them off for us and sent them to us in the mail. So it is true that we only have photocopies of these docs, not the real thing, but we believe our source, a man who lives in Delphi not far from the crime scene, sent us copies of the actual documents. He got turned in because two brothers, for some reason, were saying that he was bridge guy. There are signatures on the documents. The SIGs are from either law enforcement, the judicial system, or both. We are not going to tell you what sort of document we have. If you're smart enough, you should be able to figure it out by these bomb-sized hints we keep dropping. The man who owns the documents is not happy with us going public with these docs. He doesn't care that much about it in theory, but he doesn't want to get uncovered revealing official case documents to the media. That's why we've had to muddy up the nature of the documents themselves, how we obtained them, and how we received them. It's an attempt to protect our source from being revealed. We confess that we do make stuff up about sensitive sources and documents. It's all about protecting our sources, but we've never made up one single fact about this case in 4 years, despite what most of the internet believes. The nature of Mr. X's sex offense from the 1980s. Earlier we said that Mr. X had a conviction for a sex offense in the 1980s when he was between 16 and 26. On the other hand, other sleuths have come back and told us that Mr. X's record is clean. That's misleading. He has a conviction for statutory rape from 1982 in Illinois. He was 18 and the girl was 14. The reason the offense is not seen on his record is we believe he had it expunged. Expunged just means taken out of public record. Law enforcement still has access to the conviction. As far as how we obtained this information, we were told by a detective that Mr. X had this conviction. He told us it was in 1982. This is why we believe it occurred. The idea that he was a sex offender in the 1980s is a nothing burger. It's just run-of-the-mill statutory rape, which isn't even rape, or as we prefer to call it, illegal intercourse with a barely legal man and a teenage girl. Probably ought to be covered by Romeo and Juliet laws anyway. Very, very bizarre. Like I said, Robert Lindsay is a little weird. I mean, 18 and 14 in 1982, I mean, I don't know. I guess some people would say that's not the same thing as 2021, 1982. I don't know. It's still pretty sketchy. Unless I guess if he had just turned 18 and the girl was turning 15, I don't know. Is that just like a high school romance? A senior and a freshman? I don't know. But the way he talks about it is kind of weird, of course. Another interesting post here. This is a comment in regards to this post. The case for Mr. X is as solid as ever. The dots connecting back to Iowa with the Tyson plant is great investigative work. I saw the local Delphi news footage from the week of the murders where they interviewed Ron Logan while they are actually searching his property. He states when he got home that night, the 13th, one of his neighbors had come over to ask if he could search this property looking for the girls. So Mr. X did not ask him to search for his keys. He was officially asking to search for the girls, according to old Ronnie Boy. As you've pointed out, Mr. X did this before the search party had even assembled right at the exact parcel of land that the girls' bodies would be found on the next day. This just doesn't bode well for him. I mean, especially if you consider that he asked to search the Logan property and came up empty-handed. I almost have to wonder if that's why he later concocted the story about the keys, perhaps as an afterthought when he realized it would be hard to explain why he asked to search for the girls but then didn't find them somehow. I was more focused on finding my keys. I must have overlooked the two dead girls I was looking for in the first place. I am running into one issue with Mr. X. I was wondering if there might be a different thought on this. Some people are very insistent that Ron Logan is the killer. There is no doubt in my mind, or anyone who is in possession of an IQ higher than double-digit range, that Ron Logan is not the killer. Drunkard, perhaps. Killer, no, at least not in this case. I saw this being explained in some YouTube comments to a bunch of brainlets. I finally started to sink into these geniuses when the case was made. Look, one of the eyewitnesses who contributed to the first Bridge Guy sketch is a lady who lives right behind Ron Logan. Wouldn't you think if the killer was Ron that she would say, yeah, simply, yeah, the guy I saw that day lives right behind me? Not that anyone who has half a brain needs to be convinced Ron Logan is not the killer. However, shouldn't the exact same principle logic apply to Mr. X? Didn't he at the time live down the street from Logan? Even if somehow she didn't know about some surrounding neighbors, couldn't law enforcement just show her, or flannel shirt guy, or the bickering couple in the park, a picture of Mr. X and get verification that way? Robert Lindsay responded here, he wasn't searching for his keys early on, he was searching for the girls, it was dark. To be fair, 2 other men were also searching Ron's land that night, and they didn't find anything either. So it looks like those girls were pretty hard to miss. What does that mean, though? So they definitely weren't there then? Because you have all these individuals who searched, and they didn't find them. I don't know. No, he came up with the lost my keys gambit to explain why his car sat at the cemetery from 6:30 p.m. the day of the crime to 12:30 p.m. the next day when the girls' bodies were found, a period of 18 full hours. Of course Ron Logan didn't do it. Was he set up to take the fall? Maybe. Bridge Guy was very well disguised that day with a white scarf covering the lower half of his face. It's certainly possible that she may not have recognized Mr. X even though he was apparently a neighbor. Flannel Shirt Guy didn't recognize him either, and I'm sure that Flannel Shirt Guy and Mr. X knew each other. Flannel Shirt Guy knew everyone in town. Unless Flannel Shirt Guy is, of course, involved in this somehow. Or he did recognize him and didn't want to say for fear of something. So, okay, is it time to disclose who Mr. X is? So, again, Robert Lindsay has not explicitly stated this man's name, but apparently this was a former mayor. So he would be involved in government dealings and the police department. So he would have the connections required to not be looked at, obviously they looked at him, but not be looked at in the same capacity as a regular private citizen civilian. Now, apparently someone asked Lindsay here, Mr. X's alibi, is it true that the person who is now deceased is a police officer who committed suicide? Lindsay responds here, the rumor is that his alibi is a Delphi police officer who committed suicide in December. Apparently claimed he saw Mr. X in another town around the time of the murders. I get the impression that law enforcement thought that this officer was lying and were trying to offer him some protection. Now this begs quite a lot of questions. Because as far as alibis go, a police officer as your alibi, I mean, that's as ironclad as you can get in terms of law enforcement. It's one of their own. Now, obviously, a logical police officer, investigator with integrity is not going to just take it on faith. They're probably going to want something more. But does this account for a lot of the shady business in the Delphi investigation early on regarding suspects in general and this particular suspect, Mr. X, the former mayor who has links to Evansdale, who happened to have his vehicle there, whose alibi is no longer alive? Now, some people say his wife is also his alibi. I guess they were matching up times. Now, is it curious that this officer committed suicide? Now, if Mr. X truly is guilty, if the police officer found that out, now was he his alibi before he knew he was guilty, or are they both involved in, let's say, some kind of meth operation? So it's not that the officer thought Mr. X was guilty of murdering anybody, they were just covering up their own meth activity. And that's something that needs to be considered as well, because a lot of times, particularly in the true crime community, but there's a lot of goofiness and logically fallacious reasoning going on where, oh, if someone is lying, that means they're guilty of this particular crime. Of course not. Someone could be involved in a completely unrelated criminal enterprise, and they're lying because of that, to cover something else up. So now if this officer found out or began to suspect, or maybe Mr. X admitted it to him that he really was guilty, how would the officer react? Would he commit suicide? Now the other thing is, was it really a suicide? Again, I did not investigate this. I have no idea. I wasn't there. So is this a real suicide? If so, what brought it about? Or is this not really a suicide and there were loose ends being tied up? Were there rumors sprouting up that this particular officer maybe was going to withdraw his protection of Mr. X and admit that the alibi was fabricated? Here's another interesting post from Jennifer in response to this. Been following your blog from the start, and this is so close to what I've been feeling for a while now. I tend to think that it goes deeper than only Mr. X being involved, though. He's been on my radar for a long time now. Flannel Shirt Guy has been someone that I cannot let go of either. Did he see Bridge Guy? Did he not see Bridge Guy? People really seem to take him at face value and think that because he is older, he's not capable of committing such a crime. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but I would hope that every one of his statements has been gone over with a fine-tooth comb, verified and re-verified for good measure. I don't care what anybody's age is, you just don't know what a person is capable of. At the very least, he could have made misleading statements. Again, not saying that he did it. I have no idea either way, but it's just something that has bothered me because I don't see him being brought up nearly as much as some others who have had little to no connection to this case. The few times I've brought him up myself, this really on Reddit, I have been ripped apart for my apparent stupidity. This is simply because I've dared to question if it's possible that he was involved in any capacity or if it's possible he made misleading statements. Sounds like Jennifer would be welcome in MINDSHOCK because, again, we don't know anything. The only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. And logical examinations of all kinds without falling for logical fallacies is welcome on MINDSHOCK. That's the whole reason MINDSHOCK was created. Now, I'm not a member of law enforcement, and I never claim to have investigative experience, but I believe I'm a fairly intelligent person with at least average reasoning skills. Both my gut instinct and logic are screaming, verify the statements of Flannel Shirt Guy. He is one of the first and only witnesses in the case, although Doug Carter also said that nobody actually saw Bridge Guy. So even that, we really don't know. The fact that the mere mention of Flannel Shirt Guy is anything more than a helpful old man out for a daily stroll is met with such hostility, well, that raises all sorts of red flags with me, even if the vitriol is coming from true crime enthusiasts on Reddit. The fact that I believe law enforcement has been busy trying to cover up the mistakes they made early on leads me to believe that they inadvertently helped Bridge Guy get away with this horrendous crime and continue to do so by withholding almost every piece of information possible from the public, while at the same time begging for that one tip they need to make an arrest. The behavior of law enforcement throughout the entirety of this case is, to put it as nicely as possible, questionable. And to state the truth, just plain stupid. I'm not buying the fact that they just weren't equipped enough to handle an investigation of this magnitude. Calling off the search the night the girls went missing was a really, really bad choice. 2 young girls disappear off of an extraordinarily dangerous bridge in the middle of the day when they had plans to be picked up at a specific time. They had no history of behavior indicative of disregarding or disrespecting their parents' guardians by running off to a friend's house just to show up later. The family knew something was wrong. Law enforcement blew off their concerns and called off the search, citing safety concerns for the searchers, but seemingly had little of the same concerns for the missing teens who could have been severely hurt and unable to help themselves, just waiting for someone in law enforcement to find them that night. You know, the other thing is that I think might help in considering these aspects. Imagine there's no murder. Imagine the girls, let's say one of the girls died due to some kind of injury, and they were discovered the next day, and she could have been saved if they hadn't called off the search. I mean, how does that look? And I'll be getting to this more into this later, but if Leesenby, this mayor character, Mr. X, and other, let's say, officers or people in official capacities in government or law enforcement, if they're involved in some kind of other rings, either meth, human trafficking, whatever, again, we're in the post-Epstein era, so coincidence theorists, they can't play stupid as much as they could have pre-Epstein. But obviously, the government officials, some government officials, whatever minority, whatever percentage, again, I'm not stating that it's widespread or a lot, but there are some government officials involved in insidious, illegal, illicit operations involving drugs and or human trafficking. So if there's an intersection overlap going on here, for example, If they know there's meth being cooked in those woods and it has something to do with an officer, they might call off the search because they don't want to compromise that other side operation. So they might be trying to cover up something not related to the crime. Nobody's saying, well, I'm not saying Leesenby is bridge guy and he murdered the teens. Again, I would say his alibi would need to be verified as well. Everybody should be. But if he's trying to protect some other operation that he's involved with, it could make sense. Again, I'm not saying he's involved in the operation, but if he is, does that account for certain variables? Of course, we know now that they were killed, but as far as law enforcement was concerned, that very night, those girls were alive and may have been in desperate need of assistance. And furthermore, maybe they were alive. Again, we really don't know. Coroner's report has not been released. We don't know the official autopsy results or times of death. And and the report could be mistaken as well. Again, if there's funny business or corruption going on to cover something else up, of course, a report can be modified and altered. The fact that they were given little to no information about what really happened to Abby and Libby other than they were murdered by Bridge Guy from law enforcement says a lot more to me than law enforcement lets on. They say they want to preserve the integrity of the investigation. They say they want to prevent false confessions. They have most recently stated that they want to avoid double jeopardy. What? Double jeopardy. You say that you don't even have a suspect and you're waiting on that one tip to come in, but you're worried about double jeopardy. I'm confused. What makes even less sense to me are some of the things that they have said or at least have not challenged as not being factual. Particularly this statement, it was all over by 3:30 p.m. I believe that came from the leaked texts, and I would really like to know if that has ever been confirmed by anyone in law enforcement. That piece of information being leaked and generally accepted by the public doesn't do a damn thing to preserve the integrity of the investigation. What it does do, however, is make law enforcement appear to be slightly less incompetent for calling off that search if Abby and Libby were confirmed to have been deceased before the search even started. That's an interesting point. One thing I always have to remind myself of is that law enforcement is allowed to lie to the public. I'm sure there are instances where it's been used as an effective tactic in helping to solve crimes. I'm also sure that it's used as a tactic to convince the public that they were completely justified in making whatever decisions they felt required justification. It was all over by 3:30 sure takes a lot of the heat off law enforcement for calling off that search. After all, there was nothing they could have done anyway. It was all over by 3:30. Then again, what if it wasn't? This whole case just reeks of something stinky every which way you turn. Lastly, I want to bring up Ron Logan and the dirty hand law enforcement dealt him throughout all of this. So the girls were found on Ron Logan's property, instant person of interest. However, there's one little problem. Ron Logan couldn't have done it because he was violating the terms of his probation and was caught on camera drinking in a pizza parlor. So the stellar members of law enforcement have Ron Logan arrested and sent to jail, all the while knowing he couldn't have committed the crime, but doing nothing to stop the entire community from believing, first, that Ron Logan was a main suspect in the case, and second, believing that he was in jail because he was a suspect. This was just the most underhanded, disgusting display of we need a fall guy and law enforcement should be ashamed of themselves. Then they have the nerve to beg for witnesses to come forward with information. Well, guess what? If I happen to be out there that day, let's say partying or doing some stuff that maybe I shouldn't have been doing, and I witnessed something and had information, I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't think twice. Then I would think 2 more times before I would even consider coming forward because I would be scared, expletive, that law enforcement would throw my ass in jail for something completely unrelated, just like they did to Ron Logan. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I almost feel as though law enforcement doesn't want to solve this crime, and that scares me. So to end my novel, I agree with you. I believe Mr. X is the guy. Have for a long time. I also believe there are other factors at play here, possibly being protected, and I don't think law enforcement wants the truth of what happened to Abby and Libby to come out for whatever reason. Could be to cover their own asses, could be something more nefarious. I could be completely off base and change my mind tomorrow. I've been angry at law enforcement today regarding the case. So very, very astute comment by this Jennifer. And the only other thing, though, if law enforcement, so let's say law enforcement knows Ron Logan is on camera, it's verified, plus they have whatever witness testimony, traffic cam, they have whatever they need to 100% know that Ron Logan was not there any of these hours during the afternoon. So here's the thing, though. Because apparently Mr. X is friends with Ron Logan. So were they intentionally putting the screws to Ron Logan, so to speak, to get him to give up these other characters involved? And if he's involved in other criminal enterprises, that they think he might know something, or one of the other perpetrators involved, and they're treating him this way. Now, maybe it would have been more effective to offer him some kind of immunity or sentence reduction instead of throwing him in jail. Maybe they did and he refused it. I mean, who knows? We don't really know the exact terms there. But this might have something else involved in terms of Ron Logan. And Lindsay actually updated this as well. He updated it May 29th, 2021. Quite a few new rumors. We have uncovered quite a few new rumors from sources that have tended to be quite good in the past. I can't tell you who these people are, but one is a woman named JM, and the other is a man named MC. JM also has law enforcement connections, and she was the one who gave us testimonies from 2 law enforcement officers, a sheriff in a nearby county, and a detective working in narcotics. All rumors are unverified unless otherwise stated. The rumors. This crime scene begins at the Robinsons' backyard. Find it on a map near the dump site. This goes the length of a football field or 300 feet. Law enforcement feels that the girls were marched down from the Robinsons to the kill site where they were killed. Libby's phone was found at the scene, but nothing could be obtained from it because it was destroyed. I assume that Bridge Guy destroyed it. All of the information from Libby's phone came from the cloud. Abby's phone was also recovered at the scene. She may have hidden it in a tree. Bridge Guy is wearing a watch on his right hand, among few other things, indicates that Bridge Guy is left-handed. Verified. The bodies were discovered by following 2 sets of footprints leading down from the cemetery to the bodies. Wait a minute, 2 sets of footprints. I thought there was only one killer, and why do the prints lead down to the bodies? You mean the bodies were carried by the men who left the footprints down to the dump site? He states this is verified. And who are the other 2 men that were searching Logan's property? Because we have Mr. X and the other 2 men. Did they know Mr. X as well, and are they connected? Okay, neither guardian was aware of this, and one of them denies it altogether, but both girls had boyfriends. How this ties into the crime, if at all, is unknown. Abby's mother, Anna, bemoaned the fact that Abby died without having ever had her first kiss. Anna has plenty of things to worry about regarding her daughter, but perhaps she can rest a bit easier knowing that Abby at least got to have her first kiss, and then some, if observers at local football games are any indication. Abby's boyfriend was a 16-year-old boy. I am not trying to cast aspersion on Abby's character. I'm happy she got a boyfriend and got to experience some intimacy with another human being. One of the peak experiences we can obtain in a lifetime, and I am very happy that she died at least having experienced her first kiss. I'm happy to know she got to live a little bit before she died. The part regarding Abby is verified. Again, very weird phrasing here from Lindsay. The boots seized by law enforcement in the fake bomb threat raid on the Indiana Packers are thought to be the exact type of boots that Bridge Guy was wearing. They are waterproof, extend up to the knee. This would enable Bridge Guy to walk across the creek without getting wet at all. I believe there may have been something said by law enforcement about Bridge Guy's eyes being blue. Someone check me on this, please. At any rate, the woman who was walking her dog, is that the woman who saw Bridge Guy on the south side of the bridge at 12:30 p.m., said his eyes were brown with a hazel tint. Bridge Guy knew that bridge extremely well. Dan McCain said he walks the bridge all the time, and Bridge Guy walked the bridge faster than Dan does. Bridge Guy absolutely knew his way around the bridge and the general surrounding area. Verified. The Daniel Nations tie-in. Rumor says a hatchet was used in the crime. This is actually some very shocking news, but it all makes sense. We know that for some reason law enforcement was very interested in nations who had been committing crimes involving hatchets. Indiana law enforcement went all the way back to Colorado to talk to Colorado law enforcement about this crime. We have been told that law enforcement also went back to another state to check out another criminal who had been committing crimes with a hatchet. One wonders why on earth law enforcement is going all the way back to other states to check out suspects committing crimes with hatchets. Well, now we may have an answer. There is now a rumor from the same two sources above and from a second source that a hatchet was used in the Delphi murders. One shudders to think of how it might have been used. However, one of the girls was killed by a deep cut to her neck. Rumor says she was almost decapitated. Another rumor says that only 1 inch of skin was holding her neck on. Now, the standard view all this time was that this attack was done with a knife, probably a hunting knife, probably one of the 5 hunting knives Bridge Guy has in the deer kit around his waist. However, if you know about knives and the cutting of throats, typically a homicide victim with a cut throat is not cut very deeply because it's very hard to make a deep cut in a throat with a mere knife. If you have seen any of the Al-Qaeda and ISIS beheading videos, you can see that huge knives were used to decapitate the victims. It's dubious that Bridge Guy had a huge knife on him. However, a single blow to a neck with a well-sharpened hatchet could, and in many cases would indeed, leave such a deep cut that one could nearly decapitate someone with a single swing. Although this is an unverified rumor, it does have the advantage of explaining the odd interest law enforcement has had in hatchet criminals in this case. Good transcription of the girl's conversation recorded on Libby's phone before the abduction. This comes from Abby's mother, Anna. She was told this by a detective. I do not know whether she was played the tape or not. Possibly she was. The source is Gray Hughes. Much as I dislike the man, he's very strict about the truth, far too strict in fact, but due to this you can generally bet that when Gray decides that something is true, it almost certainly is. Abby apparently looks up at Libby and says, he's right behind me, isn't he? Abby apparently hurries to the other side of the bridge. The girls discuss which way to go. 2 ways are mentioned. Abby says, is that a gun? He's got a gun. Followed by a click sound. Bridge Guy says, hey, followed by down the hill. There was no further recording that was clearly discernible. Reports indicate that Bridge Guy was seen, but no one can draw a picture closer than what is available. Okay, so let's wrap this case up against Mr. X here, this former mayor, possibly. So let's just recap Mr. X here. Some posts on Reddit regarding this character. He's my numero uno. The truck being left there for so long is obviously a starting point. He was very involved in the search. He's the one who asked Ron Logan if they could search his property and was among the first people to spot the bodies. He also had a strange gait that could match up with Bridge Guy's. I know the bridge affects the gate, but law enforcement did ask people to look at it. He claimed to have a mental breakdown for 3 months following the crime. Certainly a huge behavioral change. What I'd like to figure out is who his alibi is. And then, of course, people find it very interesting that he was living and working in Evansdale when the Evansdale murders occurred. Now, some people counter his presence being that suspicious because if he was a family friend and family were asking people to search even before it was all made official, or they made social media posts, if anybody has seen Abby or Libby, to contact the families, whatever, that they're missing, etc. Is he trying to be a good Samaritan? And he also happens to have a lot of mental issues, even if he's innocent. Now, if he's innocent and he has a lot of mental issues, and he really did discover the bodies but was not guilty of whatever was done to them, it is possible he could have a mental breakdown of some kind. And again, if he has severe mental issues, that could explain some of this erratic behavior. But it's curious none the least. And is it coincidental that if a law enforcement officer was his alibi, that law enforcement officer happened to commit suicide? Now, here's, so people are arguing back and forth if Bridge Guy would have escaped the area as quickly as possible. So here's a counterpoint here. Why are you applying that line of thinking to someone who killed 2 girls in broad daylight? Of course, that's if that happened. Perhaps they were killed later that night. Who knows? You're thinking about this as how you would handle things if you were the one who killed these girls. It wasn't you. It was someone who was so sick and deranged that he compulsively grabbed 2 girls that fit his sick, deranged fantasy criteria and in cold blood killed them in brutal fashion. If you're a law enforcement said-so kind of guy, realize they think he was actually present at one, if not both, press conferences. Ask yourself why they think that and what kind of a person would do that. Also, apparently Mike Patty said that he asked Mears for permission to park his vehicle there. So we, of course, have plenty more to go over and plenty more suspects to go over. And I will be doing so in the coming episodes, which should be released shortly as well. I'll be trying to get all the suspects done as quickly as possible. And then I'll also be releasing the Delphi police scanner audio cleaned up from February 14th, 2017. And, of course, the reports that they were originally found in the water. I mean, there's so much in this case that just does not make sense. And again, I mean, all we can do is really keep awareness up in the case, awareness and pressure, and hopefully justice will be served soon enough. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of the MINDSHOCK podcast and found it interesting. If you do, feel free to donate to our PayPal, help support the channel, help us get more mind-shocking content out there, and keep up awareness in all different types of cases, missing persons, cold case, unsolved murders, etc. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through. Or you can just go to youtube.com/MindShock or youtube.com/MindShockTrueCrime. Like and share this particular podcast on social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier, so you can help support MindShock by becoming a patron as well. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.
If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MindShock True Crime. You are listening to the Delphi case series. This is episode 16. James Brian Chadwell. Everyone's been talking about Chadwell, whether or not he makes a good suspect, why he's so creepy, and strange connections. I mean, this is a guy that used to camp under the Monon High Bridge. I mean, it does get strange, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Everything needs to be dissected in typical MindShock fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through. Or you could just go to youtube.com/MindShock. Like and share this podcast. Keep up the awareness in this case as well as other unsolved cases. Like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section. Alright, let's just do a quick overview on Chadwell first. This was posted by Jessica McBride, June 7th, 2021 on Heavy.com. James Brian Chadwell, 5 fast facts you need to know. James Brian Chadwell II is a 42-year-old Lafayette, Indiana man who is accused of attempted murder after police found an injured, missing 9-year-old girl in his basement April 19th, 2021. Authorities in nearby Delphi, only 15 miles away, are investigating him as a possible suspect in the notorious unsolved 2017 murders of Delphi teens Abigail Williams and Liberty German. The information has obviously been shared with us, and our investigators are looking into him, Carroll County Sheriff Toby Leesenby told the Lafayette Journal and Courier. According to Good Morning America, the sheriff says there are several factors causing authorities to look into Chadwell for the Delphi murders, but he didn't specify what they were. He told ABC News detectives are exploring whether there might be a connection, but stressed there is no specific link as of yet. Abby and Libby were murdered after going for a hike near an old bridge in February 2017. They were discovered near the Monon High Bridge Trail, Fox 59 reported, which is part of the Delphi Historic Trails. Authorities have released 2 crime scene sketches of a possible suspect, one in which he looks far younger than the other. They also released Snapchat video from Libby's phone of a man walking on a bridge toward the girls before they were killed. Libby also captured audio of his voice saying, "down the hill," according to WRTV. How exactly they died has not been released by authorities. In the intervening years, other people have been investigated as suspects, with nothing coming of it. Chadwell is a felon with criminal history. Some have noted that he has chilling tattoos of girls' faces on his arms. And, okay, see, the thing is, the face, it's weird. There's definitely a tattooed face of either tears or something of the sort, just strange makeup or whatever. And there is a resemblance to Liberty German, but there's also a resemblance to many, many other teens. Police in to find the person that they're holding. So, what is Chadwell's frame of mind? Is he just completely deranged and insane? Is there another explanation? Did he really live alone? Is there someone else there? Was Chadwell really ignorant of this? I mean, how deranged and insane is this man and completely detached from reality? These are important questions. The girl described going into Chadwell's residence and petting his dogs. While inside the home, Chadwell attacked her, she said. The girl said Chadwell hit her in the head multiple times because she was fighting back. Victim 1 said Chadwell was also choking her with his hands on her neck and also using his arm in a headlock, to the point where she passed out. Victim 1 said most of her clothes were off when she regained consciousness, and Chadwell took her into the basement, according to the affidavit. He attempted to have intercourse with her and then made her perform oral sex on him, the affidavit alleges. At one point, Chadwell got dressed to go answer the door, and then the police found her, it says. Across her neck were lateral strangulation marks, and she had broken blood vessels with black eyes, bruising to her head, arms, and legs, and bite marks, according to the court document. The girl also had a dog bite, according to WLFI. I mean, this is really, really dark stuff. Court records show that Chadwell faces the following charges: attempted murder, attempted intentional killing of another, child molesting where defendant is at least 21 years of age, kidnapping where victim is less than 14 years of age, criminal confinement resulting in serious bodily injury, battery resulting in serious bodily injury, and strangulation. A post on Facebook from a woman who said she was related to the 9-year-old victim claimed Chadwell strangled her so bad blood came out of her eyes. Her trachea is damaged to where all she can do is eat through a straw. If it hadn't been for the speed of the Lafayette Police Department arriving on the scene, she'd be dead. She's only 9, he's punching her, and his pit bull is biting her. She praised first responders. 2. Some have noted that Chadwell has tattoos of crying girls' faces on his arms. Astute observers noted that Chadwell has 2 tattoos of 2 girls' faces on his arms in which they appear to be crying blood. Some people on social media believe one of the faces looks like Liberty German. However, authorities have not publicly connected Chadwell to the murders of Libby and Abby other than to say they are looking into him. Some people argue that Chadwell had at least one of the tattoos before the slayings, saying this is a picture of him before that point. And that is curious. In the digital age, especially if he's on social media and posting all these pictures, if he had these tattoos, again, quite some time before 2017, that should be enough to say, okay, well, he could still be responsible, of course, but then that specific tattoo might not be of Liberty German. However, his brother Ashley Chadwell told Inside Edition of the tattoo resembling Libby, I really don't think he had that tattoo when he got out of prison. Ashley Chadwell told Inside Edition, he's a monster exactly. He's an absolute evil person. Do I think that he's capable of that kind of crime? Absolutely. Absolutely. He's shown numerous times, not only to his friends, but his family as well, that he has that kind of evil streak to him. His stepfather told the show he thought Chadwell was capable of being the killer of Abby and Libby. Is he capable? Probably. And should they let him back out on the street? Not ever. Throw away the key this time, James's stepfather said to Inside Edition. In one post on Facebook, Chadwell wrote, I'm in love with a little redhead. You make my soul smile. I'll chase you till I can't walk. Then I'll chase you in my wheelchair. Okay, that's kind of weird. He also shared numerous posts and photos showing he had an affinity for the woods and outdoors, as well as a picture of a railroad bridge. In a June 2020 post, he wrote, sleeping under a bridge for a while till work starts. Only 10 days, cool, dry, no neighbors, and the bridge is only 6 minutes from work. Be thankful for the little things. Below are images released by police in relation to the 2017 murders. Over the years, others have been considered suspects in the girls' deaths. You can listen to the chilling audio. Okay. Named as a possible suspect in the past was an Indiana man, Paul Etter, 55, who was killed in a standoff with police after being accused of abducting and sexually assaulting a 26-year-old woman who pulled into his driveway with a flat tire. However, nothing ever came of it. No one has been arrested or charged or publicly accused in the murders. 3. Chadwell, a welder, filled his Facebook page with angry rants about life, saying that he wrecked everything and cries a lot. In one of his voluminous posts on Facebook, Chadwell wrote, sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Everything was going so well, but I had to wreck it because I don't understand easy. I wrecked it, now I'm here again at the beginning. I cry a lot because I know there are people dealing with worse. I'll survive, but a lot won't. We need to come together and help everyone, especially the ones that are struggling. It's up to us to make a difference. It's not about skin color or religion. It's about loving one another. We are all in this together. Let's make this monumental. I support this movement. Back me and smile. He wrote that he was a welder fabricator at Wabash National, who lived in Lafayette, Indiana, but was from La Follette, Tennessee. He described himself as single. He showed an obsession with pit bulls. Stormed Area 51 last night. The aliens are real, he wrote in one post. Tuesday night bonfire Expletive society, I do what I want, he wrote in another post. Stuck in Gary, Indiana for a week of work, dirtiest city ever. Sometimes beauty can be found in the most unexpected of places, though. I love all of life's creatures, big, small, hairy, or just plain creepy. If they don't threaten my life, I won't threaten theirs. That's good parenting skills with a Z. OMG, took forever to see the faces in this. If you can find the angel and the demon, wow. I've had this schoolboy crush on this girl since the car wash and train trestle. I'm not what she deserves, but I'm trying to be something. Even if she never talks to me again, at least I'll know I was a part. Baby, please don't make me keep searching for you when I know exactly where you are. You will always be my dream girl. Can we just skip all the formalities? I just want a woman that's willing to put in the same effort I do. I know that's probably too much to ask in this day and age, but a boy can still dream. If I can't have true love, I have Pornhub. Quite the poet. So many women talk a good game, but actually have no game. They talk about forever and happily ever after, but don't want to do expletive to keep it. Getting it is the baby steps. Keeping it is being called a committed adult who is truly in love. You all need to get your expletive right and quit blaming good guys for where you're falling short. We don't need you. Now, there was a post here about apparently people that killed a baby elephant, and Chadwell responded, I want to hunt humans. Make my own style of wall mounts. Now, yeah, that one's a little weird, because if he's talking about hunting the humans that hunt baby elephants, I mean, I don't know. Might not be a bad thing. So, my life is going really well, but I want to wreck it. I don't know what's wrong with me, I just know what is. This life seems so lackluster, I don't need more. I want to be more. He shared this other post. The police are looking for a suspect described as sexy, funny, and great in bed. You're safe, but where shall I hide? So this is probably not going to be politically correct and will probably sound worse than I wanted to, but I just want to say thank you to my darker-skinned friends. Whatever your background, thank you for helping me grow. I love the flavor that all of you bring to my vanilla world. Thank you. Another post, I don't have a social circle because I don't like people. I'm trying. Wow. He also shared this post, my 4 moods. I need coffee. 1, I need coffee. 2, I need a nap. 3, I need a vacation. 4, I need duct tape, rope, and a shovel. Another post here. I'm dying inside because I feel I have nothing, but I have everything. I will make it. I don't need your approval. Crazy weekend. Came home after work on Friday to find someone had broken in and was sleeping in my extra bedroom. Took me about 15 minutes to wake him up. He woke up trying to tell me this was his house. I hurt him pretty bad, drug him to the sidewalk, and called local law. They arrested me for assault. Went to jail, told them what happened. They dropped charges against me and charged him. Still cost me $400 to get out. Then today I was walking into work and slipped and fell on the ice. Broken right wrist, 6 stitches in my head, and back issues. So now I'm stuck on light duty for a while and spent all day at the hospital. I'm still smiling. Without the bad, we wouldn't appreciate the good. Blessings come in many shades. Be thankful for what you have. Trump, you still have my vote. I'm not sure how that was political, but that's how he ended that. Okay. He shared this other post, how sheep get away with murder. And there's 5 sheep lined up with their numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 2 guys watching on the other side of the one-way mirror, nodding off sleeping. Because they're counting the sheep. Okay, whatever. Okay. Other posts here, no Valentines, no drama. Turned myself into a 90 treatment facility. I'm gonna beat this. Another post, I was locked up for 13 and a half years because I assaulted a prison guard and a cop. Never imagined it would be so difficult coming back out here. I'm a good guy, just made some mistakes. The world holds it against me. Now I'm doing better and still get judged. Cops need expletives like me to keep them in line. We still have rights. 4, Chadwell has a lengthy, assaultive criminal history in Indiana and South Dakota. The probable cause affidavit says that Chadwell has an extensive criminal history. He was convicted of criminal recklessness with a deadly weapon, a felony, in Miami County. He was convicted in 2000 in Pennington County, South Dakota, of assault aggravated, a felony, and was convicted of stolen property. He was convicted in U.S. District Court, South Dakota, of being a felon in possession of a firearm, a felony, in 2001. He was convicted in Minnehaha County. Is that how you pronounce it? Minnehaha County, South Dakota, of assaulted aggravated a felony in 2003. He was convicted in Cass County, Indiana, for receiving stolen property, a felony, on June 9, 2016. He was convicted of OWI with a prior, a felony, and resisting law enforcement, a misdemeanor, in February 2020 in Miami County. In October 2020, he was convicted of criminal trespass and criminal mischief and was still on probation. He was convicted of criminal trespass and was wanted on warrants. Court records show that when he was convicted of criminal trespassing in 2020, a charge of public intoxication was dismissed. He received a 90-day jail sentence. Court records also show he used to live in Peru, Indiana. His father filed a notice of claim to evict him from that address in 2020. In 2020, when he was convicted of resisting law enforcement, he received a 124-day jail term. A theft charge was dismissed. His probation was revoked. In 2020, he was also convicted of drunk driving with a prior conviction and resisting law enforcement. A charge of operating a vehicle while intoxicating, endangering a person was dismissed. He received 365 days in jail. That was a felony case. He had an ongoing court case in 2017 for receiving stolen property and probation violation, but no hearings in February 2017. There were hearings, however, in that case in the months after the time frame. At the time, his address was given as Kokomo, Indiana. That's about 34 miles from Delphi, and of course there are other individuals connected to Kokomo, and I'll be going over them probably in the next podcast. That's about 34 miles from Delphi. He was sentenced in June 2016. In August 2016, he allegedly violated probation. In November 2016, he was taken to jail and held without bond, but a few days later, the state and probation officer agreed to an OR release of the defendant from the CCJ. A hearing was scheduled for April 2017 in the case. The Delphi murders occurred February 2017. He was found guilty of battery resulting in bodily injury in 2000 and criminal recklessness resulting in serious injury. Charges of illegal consumption of alcohol and battery resulting in serious bodily injury were dismissed. He was accused of violating probation. On TikTok, Chadwell talked about people preying on the little people. In a chilling TikTok video recorded April 18th, Chadwell said, "So, to all you little kids out there, my nose doesn't look like this because I cut myself shaving. If you want to come get some. Quit preying on the little people. There's more than enough to go around. Come find me, or I will find you." He had an injury to his nose in the video.
So, to all you little kids out there that are talking about this rape date thing, my nose doesn't look like this because I cut myself shaving. If you want some, come get some. Quit preying on little people. There's more than enough to go around. Come find me, or I will find you.
Wow. This is really, really bizarre. I mean, is this just a raving lunatic? Is this guy just a complete madman, or is this some kind of cold, calculated, threatening message to specific individuals? I mean, it's really tough to tell. I mean, it really is. Can we definitively say this guy is not completely insane? I don't know if we could say that. In another TikTok video, April 16th, he said, "So this national rape thing, it's a bunch of young expletive kids starting some expletive. There's not really doing that. Nobody does that. If we do, we expletive kill them. That's all. They know. Don't be a lamb, be a lion. If you fall into that trap, that's your fault because you're an expletive, dumb expletive. Get over it." Huh. What is he talking about exactly? That doesn't make a lot of sense either. On April 18th, Chad will record a TikTok video in which he said, "All you chicks on TikTok trying to sling your booty or sling your taco, whatever you're trying to do, you need to wrap that expletive up. It ain't working. We got Pornhub for that expletive. We don't need your little extras, so take that expletive somewhere else. We're looking for a real woman over the age of 30 and confident, and you know who you are." That was the day before the girl was reported missing in Lafayette. Chadwell used the TikTok handle Outlaw313. Interesting.
So apparently I was liking some videos that I was just trying to support and didn't really understand exactly what they were about. But I'm still gonna fucking support you guys. You got me, I got you. That's all that matters. Keep doing what you're doing. So this national rape thing, it's a bunch of young ass kids fucking starting some bullshit just to get some social media support. They're not really fucking doing that. Nobody does that. If they do, we fucking kill them. That's all. They know. Don't be a lamb. Be a lion. If you fall into that trap, that's your fault. Because you're a fucking dumbass. Get over it. So I said I would never do this because I'm not photogenic for one thing, but I also just really don't like people. I have dogs. But I just wanted to say thank you to all you people out there that are sharing your stories and inspiring the rest of us to keep trying and doing our best. It means more than you know. That's really all I got. I'm not here for the shares and the likes and any of that stuff. I'm just here for support for others. Okay, there's something I want to get off my chest. To all you black folk out there that are constantly trying to stand up to the government because they're corrupt. Thank you. I love you. And know you're not in this battle alone. We're all in this together. United we stand, divided we fall. Let's win one for the people. For our people. So, all you chicks on TikTok trying to sling your booty or sling your taco, whatever you're trying to do, you need to wrap that shit up. It ain't working. Nobody, we got Pornhub for that shit. We don't need your little extras. So, take that shit somewhere else. We're looking for a real ass woman. Over the age of 30. And confident. And you know who you are.
So he does sound similar to the audio recording down the hill. However, so do a lot of people. And we really don't know what, I don't know who pointed this out, it might have been on a YouTube comment. We don't exactly know what type of audio cleanup has been done to that audio clip. And because if that was recorded through a pocket, through some clothes rustling, and there was some distortion, and there was some attempts to clean up the distortion, which might have altered the voice. So the real voice might not sound exactly like that. So that's another point. I don't know if I went over that specifically, but that's a good point. So it's not, someone might not sound exactly like that. Through the distortion or distortion correction, there might have been enough alteration where someone doesn't sound exactly like that, so it might be even harder to pinpoint. Now, another curiosity is so on February 14th, 2017, Brian Chadwell posted a photograph of him and a dog putting a tennis ball in his mouth. And the post is, sometimes your kids just need to be reminded whom really is in charge. Very curious. Very curious. How much of a coincidence is that? And in this post, again, this doesn't necessarily mean this photograph was taken that day. He shared this on social media that day. But he's pretty clean-shaven, and he doesn't have the ear gauges. And some believe he maybe can bear a resemblance to the second Young Guy sketch. I don't really see it, though. Alright, let's examine this post from Libby and Abby's subreddit by Delphi Throwaway 6375, The Shack, and Brian Chadwell. Brian Chadwell has many Facebook posts about religion and is back and forth with Christianity. Additionally, he posted about a cabin in the woods just a month after the murders. Is it possible that he was on law enforcement's radar enough for this reference to be directed towards him? Does anyone know enough about the shack to know if this post is related in any way? And this was a post from Brian Chadwell, March 18th, 2017. I think I'm finally ready for my lost cabin in the woods. If you don't hear from me, know I'm smiling somewhere. And a few responses here. Very good catch. It's been said he was also camping under a bridge after he was out of prison. His photos on Facebook show a lot of bridges and streams and bridges. Another post here. I'm not saying Chadwell can't be Bridge Guy, but I expect that when Bridge Guy is caught, he'll turn out to be someone who doesn't have a lot of photos of himself on social media, at least not visible to the general public, and doesn't show off that he's always hanging around bridges and streams. When you know there's video evidence of you as a murder suspect, anyone with half a brain cell would keep a low profile. Chadwell's a monster, no doubt, just for the crime he's currently charged with, but I wouldn't regard any of this as incriminating evidence for the Delphi murders. And a rebuttal post here, which is very fair. Fair point, but after reading through his Facebook feed, it's evident he isn't exactly the brightest bulb in the box. Someone else also wrote this. I noticed some severe mental health concerns. So that is all curious, because again, if he's just flat out inviting police into his home, because what if he said you can't search the home? Wouldn't a regular criminal with some kind of wherewithal want to at least attempt to prevent law enforcement from finding out about their crimes? I mean, I would think so. But if he's just that dumb and or just simply deranged and detached from reality, what would that look like? But it is curious. I don't know if we can disagree with that. If the true perpetrator is ever caught, who thinks that they would have a large social media presence versus non-existent or nearly non-existent social media presence? And I don't know if there's any evidence that Chadwell was in the search party. And some of his other posts, people are saying he mentioned several times that he missed and wanted to go back to prison. Now that's curious. That's really curious. Is that why he would just randomly let the police into his home? A good post here by Sharon to try and even understand this sick mind of his is next to impossible. I feel he didn't care if he got caught. Because any killer rapist who wants to get away with their crime is not going to allow the police to just go right in their home and search, especially without a warrant, knowing full well he had a kidnapped child who he had raped and tried to murder chained up in his basement. This guy lacks any common sense and is incredibly stupid and brazen. This disgusting rapist will now be on the receiving end in a very bad way in prison with the big bad boys. Okay, so this leads me to believe if his mental issues are that severe, is it possible he has some kind of split personality? In which case, that could explain a few things. Again, this doesn't mean he's guilty in regards to the Delphi murders in any way, but could that explain some of this other insanity? Another poster, No Donut, said this: he didn't or neighbor either. He had warrants, and of course the police are coming right to the neighbors to see if they know anything. Someone else posted this, Vandy and Lavellin. I saw someone mention that after the murders he deleted all photos of himself from before the murders and only started posting photos of himself again half a year later. Almost as if he was staying on the lowdown, but then felt confident he'd gotten away with it. And the response was here, it's not that he deleted the old photos, but he made them friends only. And Homeless Dude responded here, that person saying he made all pics friends only and kind of going quiet, that seems suspicious to me, and in line with behavior the police said to watch for. The voice matches in my opinion too. I am evidence-based and fact-based individual, and he is checking a lot of boxes in my opinion. My gut says it's going to be him. Of course he is innocent of being the Bridge Guy murder until proven guilty in a court of law. I mean, this all really comes down to, how is it that difficult to verify that tattoo and when he got it? I mean, again, if his brother hates him and thinks he's evil like the rest of his family, he could be either lying or maybe he might not know. If he doesn't see his brother all the time, how would he know exactly when he got the tattoo? And he didn't seem quite sure either when mentioning it. An interesting post here by Proof Spite. I think there's this false belief that Bridge Guy was some savant or incredible genius. I think he was an animal who got really lucky because the stars aligned for him on that particular day and he was able to take advantage of a couple different things. One, the innocence of the town, i.e. it's okay to let your kids play outside. Two, the innocence of two teen girls just being two teen girls. I just don't believe that him not being caught equates to him being some kind of incredible criminal mastermind. I think he was a beast with unquenchable urges who saw an opportunity and took advantage of it. That's not to say there was no foresight or previous planning, but only that he was waiting for an opportunity and he found it. I mean, yes, but if he wasn't part of the search, I mean, how... It's curious. It's curious. Again, as we went over with the many John Weavers in the previous episode, if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check that out. There's just so many anomalies in the case that don't really add up with some random guy getting lucky. It seems like there had to have been multiple individuals involved, and then there's some other issue going on with law enforcement. And the FBI already possibly being there investigating something. I mean, it's really, really weird. Another interesting post here by Bina620. No opinion here on whether he is or isn't Bridge Guy, but it's worth pointing out that nothing about the Delphi murders means the killer was or is intelligent. In the April Tinsley case, the killer was intellectually disabled, taunted police with notes, and still outsmarted everyone until familial DNA solved it. The police thought he was misspelling everything on purpose because he was intelligent enough to evade them, which ended up being totally wrong. Maybe the Delphi killer just got really lucky that he wasn't caught due to having no previous connection to his victims. Even then, the smartest criminal would need some kind of luck if there was audio and video of him. If the girls hadn't recorded some of the interaction, it might be a complete mystery with even less of a chance of being solved. But here's the thing that these people are not accounting for. How is there nothing at the crime scene, and Chadwell is in the system? He's already a criminal in the system. So if he's that dumb, how did he not leave any trace of his DNA on the scene, which was supposedly very messy, according to some accounts? It's just not making sense. And Hoosier Cold Cases channel actually has a video of Chadwell camping under the Mononhai Bridge December 2020. Not necessarily Chadwell. Someone was camping there, and people are questioning whether or not it was James Bryan Chadwell II. And some people point out, I mean, this guy's just going around alone, videotaping the scene where the bodies were found and just the general area of the bridge. And others are saying, does law enforcement still have the area under surveillance? Because obviously murderers like to revisit the scene of the crime. You would think there was some kind of surveillance. I mean, I know they said they put up trail cams, but exactly where and how, I'm sure that could be verified who was camping there in December 2020. It's kind of cold to be camping, isn't it? I don't know. Quite curious. Now, some people are also alleging this could have been some kind of family affair. Chadwell actually has 2 brothers. Quizzical Cat posted this on Reddit as well. Yeah, I did a little sleuthing on the family, mainly just to see if there were any red flags that could help point to why Chadwell ended up as the creep he did. And to see if there were any major arrests of other family in the past. I'm very interested in learning about why people do the things they do, and if upbringing has any effect on that. Chadwell's dad seems to have his own alcohol issues, but no real red flags with his brothers. His brother Ashley is on the Indiana's domestic violence registry, but it looks like it was one incident back in 2009 that he got a short jail sentence for. His dad made it a point to state that although he raised Chadwell and gave him the same name, he's not his biological father. Then he gave the name of the sperm donor. Then he said that there are 2 other brothers who look just like him. Besides that being an odd thing to say, Ashley and Christopher don't really look like James. So I'm wondering if he's talking about 2 other brothers, probably raised by and with the same last name as the sperm donor. The way his dad said it made me think that maybe there are 2 other brothers who are also bad people, and the dad was trying to say Chadwell turned out how he did because of genetics and not his upbringing. Because why did he feel the need to throw it out there that he has 2 brothers that look just like him? That is weird. That is really weird. Huh. Someone else posted this. Did you see the video he posted of one of the relatives printing labels on tasers for the Lafayette police? I wonder if he couldn't have gotten his hands on a weapon that he shouldn't. I often wonder about Delphi and what the police meant by odd weapons or strange weapons, whatever terminology they used. This is all quite bizarre. So apparently one of the relatives prints labels for tasers for the Lafayette police. And if there's a relative connected to the police, was he possibly involved? I don't know. This is all really weird. And you would think law enforcement have investigated all of his family connections and possibly other connections to Kokomo criminals. So if there is some vast law enforcement conspiracy, they might be keeping certain connections under wraps because of CIs and other things, but it really doesn't seem like there's anything incredibly damning. A similar voice and just a deranged mind of a proven criminal. I mean, how many other guys are out there that commit these types of crimes with a similar voice? Probably quite a few. How many of them, if it can be definitively proven that he did camp at the Mononhai Bridge, that would be a lot more interesting. That would be much more of a solid link. But as of right now, I mean, I don't know if you can say that this guy should be a lead suspect, especially if the images that he posted on social media in February 2017, he didn't look like the sketch, and he looks more like the sketch later. I don't know. The older sketch, there's just so many issues with the sketches and the timeline that it's really impossible to say. But if any new information comes out about Chadwell and all the MINDSHOCKers out there, feel free to drop any other info you may have on Chadwell. We will continue to examine it, but we will also be looking at other persons of interest, and other theories. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of MindShock True Crime. If you want to support MindShock and help us get more mind-shocking podcasts out there, keeping up awareness in various cold cases and missing persons cases, feel free to donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, or you can just go to youtube.com/MindShock. Like and share this podcast on social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get a priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. So you could also help support the channel by becoming a patron. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.
If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to MindShock True Crime. You are listening to the Delphi case series. This is episode 17. Multiple good suspects. And I will be examining the possibility that we have something we have not yet discussed on MindShock. Not that law enforcement is completely clueless and they don't know who did it. Not that law enforcement have their suspicions and a pretty good idea of who did it. But what if law enforcement have multiple solid suspects with solid evidence pointing to both of them, but they somehow know that they weren't working together and they weren't both responsible, and they have no way as of yet of figuring out which one of them is the true culprit? And maybe they worked with other individuals either. So we have suspect or suspects A group and suspect or suspects B group, and somehow law enforcement knows that they're not working together and that only one of the groups executed this crime. And this is something that needs to be examined as well, because I have not heard this being discussed yet. As always, if you enjoy the podcast and you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through. Or you can just go to youtube.com/MindShock. Like and share this podcast episode. Keep the awareness up, not just in this case, but in other unsolved cases as well. Missing persons case, wrongful convictions. Obviously, awareness is key for any kind of closure in any of these cases. You can share the podcast on multiple social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon, where you can find us as well. And patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. And I'll drop the disclaimer, at least a first or second grade English comprehension level is required for this podcast, unless you just want to be used as an example for people who post in a Dunning-Kruger stupor and just cannot comprehend these basic concepts being presented. So there's been speculation, various different individuals. I won't go into specific POIs. I've gone over them in the previous podcasts. We had Mr. X, of course, a favorite suspect, former mayor. And then on the previous episode, I went over Chadwell and the curiosities surrounding this criminal and whether or not he could be somehow connected to the Delphi case. And on that previous episode, there's also been a video put forth, Who's Your Cold Cases, where apparently people camp near the Monon High Bridge, underneath the bridge, even in the winter months. Which is, I don't know, would people consider that strange? I mean, it gets pretty cold in the winter months in Indiana. I don't know. It's a little bizarre, perhaps. And of course, people commented, wouldn't law enforcement continue to have that area under surveillance? I mean, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It's all quite curious. But in this podcast, we're going to be examining not the possibility that law enforcement are completely clueless and or corrupt, although that is very possible, of course. Not discounting that at all. We're just examining different theories. Not that they have one particular suspect that they zeroed in on. Maybe they did, and they have no way of knowing for certain. I mean, they really believe it's the guy. But what if they have two different guys or groups of guys, males or females? Again, I'm not presupposing. We have Group A, we have Group B. Somehow they know that they're both not responsible, and yet they believe that one of these groups is definitely responsible. But they don't know which one. So now what do we do? What if both these groups were involved in the search? What then? If the scene was contaminated to the point where there's multiple individuals' DNA there, how do you make heads or tails of this? What if one of the groups does have connections to some kind of political individuals, mayors, former mayors, police or law enforcement, so it's very difficult for them to pursue, particularly when they have another group that could very well be possible. So how do they eliminate one group versus another group? And how does the FBI fit into all of this? I've examined this in previous episodes on the possibility that the FBI is investigating some kind of corruption and was prior to the Delphi murders in the first place. So they were already there. Now, how does this intersect with the Delphi murders? So, coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping cultists, the Dunning-Kruger crowd, for whatever reason, they hate unknown unknowns. Now, unknowns are variables that are always present. You don't know what you don't know. And you'll notice with the Dunning-Kruger crowd, these individuals that insist that maybe they don't even have a theory, but they insist any kind of theory involving corruption or what they subjectively consider far-fetched in this fallacious appeal to incredulity logical fallacy that they employ in order to write off things that they're too mentally weak to consider in their Dunning-Kruger stupor. They always hallucinate that there are no unknown unknowns that could account for theory ABC being true, whatever, theories they don't agree with or they don't think could be true, again, due to their mental weakness. Unknown unknowns are always present in every case. Now, we have to keep that in mind because this is MINDSHOCK, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure, and we have to keep logical fallacies in mind. Because this is, of course, a logical podcast. Unlike the many other true crime podcasts out there. The whole reason MINDSHOCK exists is because there's a severe dearth of logical true crime podcasts out there that consider every theory and specifically make note not to fall for logical fallacies. Being logical and scientific is being objective, not writing off any theories based on one's subjective viewpoints, opinions, and mental weaknesses, and considering theories that they, again, are too mentally weak to consider to be true, like corruption. Corruption is one of these things that the Dunning-Kruger crowd, the coincidence theorists, they maintain, oh, sure, corruption can exist, but it could never exist on this particular level or interfere in an investigation to this particular extent. They just hallucinate these lines in the sand based on nothing but their own baseless opinions. So, if there is a major unknown unknown, and it is overlapping the police having two different groups that they think might be responsible. Again, the Group A and Group B, I just said that for the ease of classification. It might be a single individual. It might be multiple individuals. Either way, there's Group A with a single or multiple individuals, and Group B with a single or multiple individuals. If law enforcement somehow know they're both not responsible, they surmise that one group is responsible, but they don't know which, and there is an unknown variable overlapping the situation. Does that account for everything? I believe it might. Particularly if one of the groups is affiliated politically or with law enforcement. Now, again, because they don't know for sure which group it is, it's difficult for them to really go all in on a guy that has these kinds of connections. Because how often do politicians really get accused of murder or kidnapping or even drug crimes? Only when there's 100% definitive evidence. Law enforcement typically don't go after these high-ranking officials the same way they would in a classist fashion over a regular private citizen who they might even plant drugs on, of course, plenty of cases, or plant weapons on to make it look like they were somehow violent when they weren't if something goes wrong. Obviously, there's two sets of rules. The cognitive dissonant coincidence theorists, the masses, the sheep, the lemmings, some of them don't want to believe this, but private citizens are not treated the same way as politicians or law enforcement when being accused of crimes. It's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law with a presumption of innocence. Obviously, anybody who's got their eyes open knows that unfortunately it's not. Now, I'm not going to ascribe percentages. I'm not saying corruption is rampant. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's only 5%, but 5% is too much. Maybe it's 10, 20%. Again, I'm not hallucinating to know the truth, to know the exact figures, but it would be quite silly to say that there's none. Obviously, there's some, and obviously private citizens are not treated the same way as politically affiliated individuals, politicians, mayors, former mayors, or law enforcement. Now, occasionally, you do have law enforcement officers, law enforcement individuals who have character and who will follow the law, and they might bring in such an individual. But it's rare unless the evidence is absolutely overwhelming. So clearly, we don't have absolute overwhelming evidence in the Delphi case. We don't have that here. So again, if law enforcement suspects it's possible that a mayor, former mayor, or law enforcement officer, maybe even a minister at a church, someone with some kind of high societal standing, they're not going to bring them in as quick as a regular private citizen, as a guy. Not going to treat them the same way. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. Anyone denying that is just being really, really silly when it comes to examining the world around them. So is that why certain press conferences were orchestrated, possibly with even false info being put forth, to try to draw out the true guilty party, the true guilty group? And what if they just weren't 100% successful in doing that, where they could definitively rule out a group, so both groups are effectively still on the table, and they have to proceed with caution regarding the group that has political affiliations? Is it really just that simple? Some people might say it's not simple, but I think I outlined it in a fashion that's relatively simple to understand. Two groups, one possibly politically affiliated, and an unknown variable involved in the case as a whole. Now, you don't need to know what the unknown variable is to understand that there's a possibility that there is one, and it's affecting the case and the case being solved. Once again, if you're not new to true crime, you can look at all these other true crime cases that could not be solved until that unknown was brought into the picture that nobody even knew about because it was an unknown. Possibly a witness that came forward that nobody knew about. Possibly some kind of factor that was just simply unknown. And I'll be getting more into some of these true crime cases where there was a government overlap, some kind of top secret government clearances overlaps. Like the Chandra Levy case, Chandra Levy case, who was an intern at the Federal Department of Prisons in Washington, D.C. And there's just so much shady business in that case in 2001. And I will be going into that case. There's shades of Maura Murray in that as well. And no, I am not alleging that Liberty German or Abigail Williams were some kind of top secret government agents. I'm saying that there might have been an investigation by the FBI or other agencies into an individual that's part of Group A, possibly a politically affiliated individual that might be guilty of this crime for whatever reason. Either they're really just out there for kicks, a serial killer minded individual, or there really was some kind of conflict, some kind of online catfish, some kind of family vendettas with Derek German and his drug dealing past. Who knows? These are all rumors that may or may not be true and may or may not affect the outcome of the case. But to just outright dismiss them without knowing what the truth is, I mean, that's why cases remain unsolved. The truth is not afraid of investigation. So, if there was someone being investigated, and not to overcomplicate it, but it might be a complex answer. Maybe there actually is something to Flannel Shirt Guy, to the McCain brothers, and land disputes. If there was some kind of land dispute, I mean, are the coincidence theorists out there really denying that people would be killed over land disputes? I mean, that's been going on since the dawn of time, since the dawn of humanity. To think that people might not employ radical means for land, money, power. I mean, that's just silliness. To think that humans always act alone and wouldn't be involved in any kind of crimes to further gain wealth or influence, or even just to fulfill their sadistic desires. Again, that's why serial killers exist. So there's all sorts of variables at play. If there's an overlapping unknown, or multiple unknown unknowns, of course, that is also a possibility, how would anyone know? That's why they're unknown unknowns. Now, obviously, the land issue has been hypothesized, so that's not an unknown. It has been brought into the mix. Now, to the extent that it might affect something, who knows? That's unknown. But it might be a factor. Again, we don't know who the guilty party is. If it comes out that, let's say, Group A is the guilty party with political affiliations, perhaps there's just a rogue among them. Again, when you're dealing with criminal-minded individuals, these people do not operate on the same mental frequency as a private citizen who has no intent to harm other people, let alone children. The vast majority of the population are not, I do not believe, have sadistic desires to go kill, because then there'd be a lot more people getting killed. It's this certain percentage of criminal-minded individuals who have these sadistic urges. And is it possible Group A, they do have some kind of plan, there is some kind of land dispute. There was absolutely zero plan to murder the girls. But this one rogue, he's pissed off. Maybe they pissed him off. Maybe he's on drugs. Maybe there's some kind of situation, and he's affiliated with this Group A who were part of the search. So it's very difficult to pinpoint the individual. And the other criminals associated with this individual, they can't blow the whistle on him because it will expose their own criminal activity. So in a way, all of them are compromised, and the true guilty party knows, if he acted alone, of course, or one or two individuals that are part of the group, if it's more than two, they know that they'll just blow the whistle on the other members of the group if they blow the whistle on them. So all of these, it's just a case, it might simply be a case of all these individuals having dirt on each other and not wanting their own dirt exposed. Is it that simple? And does law enforcement have an inkling that this might be the case? Maybe not. Maybe that's one of the groups. Maybe they have another group. Maybe they're still investigating the off chance that it's some guy like Daniel Nations or Chadwell or any of these other individuals that seemingly they're able to rule out based on other factors that they have not all made public, of course. Maybe they can rule them out. Maybe they can't. I mean, we have other criminals who have committed suicide. This case is really, really complex. It is definitely a one-of-a-kind case. There's video and audio evidence of a person of interest at minimum, even if the bridge guy himself is not the murderer and there was another individual who actually did the deed. And again, this is all, obviously the details are very important, whether or not they were killed that day or they were killed later in the night, or the rumors that one of the girls was still warm, possibly died in the ambulance. There's a lot of different rumors. Now, what's weird, there's two sides to this. Obviously, not all rumors are true. But on the other hand, where there's smoke, there's fire. So that's why it's difficult to tell. I'm not telling anybody to believe the rumors. I'm not telling anybody to dismiss the rumors. Because for all of these rumors and other true crime cases, sometimes the rumors turn out to be true. Sometimes they don't. So if you don't know what the real truth is, you wouldn't know which. And that's the whole point. But everything should be investigated as the truth is as of yet unknown, of course. So those details are important, whether they were taken elsewhere, all those things, that they're of critical importance. But if these individuals all have dirt on each other, they won't expose themselves. So what is law enforcement to do, particularly if, let's say, Group A is affiliated politically or with law enforcement in some capacity? In some kind of capacity, they would need 100% irrefutable evidence to really go after one of their own. Again, as we see in all these other cases, police are very, very hesitant to go after their own or politicians or just even high-ranking members of society. They usually only do that when either the fix is in and there's some kind of frame-up or fall guy being chosen, or they have overwhelming evidence of guilt to where it makes sense to pursue that. Otherwise, they'd be left red-faced, particularly if these politicians or high-ranking members of society are big donators to the police force or other political institutions. Unfortunately, there is corruption, and unfortunately, there is a lot of money that changes hands and favors that are held over people's heads. And the status of a particular person of interest or group is a factor. I mean, that just can't be denied. Law enforcement would not go after this group unless there was overwhelming evidence. So that's really all I wanted to go over today. I just wanted to add that to the mix, to just go over this possibility that there's two groups, and law enforcement might be very sure it's one of them, but they're not sure which one. And one of them could have political affiliation, which would prevent any kind of charges being brought forth until there was absolute overwhelming evidence. Furthermore, if one or two individuals of the group, if the group has more than that, so if one or two of these individuals simply went rogue, but they all have dirt on each other, the other individuals wouldn't blow the whistle on them. And there might also be another unknown variable over the entire case. So, plenty more to ponder, plenty more to go over. Leave your own thoughts, theories, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind in the comment section. Just make sure you understood what was presented first before chiming in, unless you simply want to be dissected as a Dunning-Kruger goof and an example of how Dunning-Kruger manifests. Hope you guys enjoyed another edition of the MINDSHOCK podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Help support the channel. Help us get more mind-shocking content out there. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Like and share this podcast on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Keep the awareness up in not just this case, but all these other unsolved cases, cold cases, wrongful convictions, and missing persons. And also, if you want to support the channel, you can consider becoming a patron. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, and requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. This is Bruce McGuire, signing off. Catch you guys next time.